Chapter 2948. Rejection. After listening to Long Yun's detailed explanation, Jian Wushuang had a certain understanding of the three palaces. To put it bluntly, the three palaces were specifically used by the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance to cultivate geniuses and monsters. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's forces were spread across every corner of the Primordial Palace, and there were countless experts who joined the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. However, these experts were very loose, and there were no restrictions. Among the experts who joined the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, it was inevitable that there would be some extremely outstanding geniuses who were monsters. To these top geniuses and monsters, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance would send out an invitation, asking them to join the three palaces. Once they entered these three palaces, they could receive the greatest degree of cultivation in the entire absolute beginning divine realm. There were countless resources and treasures, and because they had everything, they could allow this genius monster's strength to increase at the fastest speed. However, there were two sides to everything. If he wanted to enter the three palaces and receive the best cultivation, then from now on, this genius would truly belong to the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Although he did not have to be absolutely loyal to the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, he had to contribute some strength to the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Brother Tianhou, during the 10 days you roamed the Black Dragon Mountain, Shuiyu and I saw your performance clearly through the enchantment, including the fact that you killed the peak false Saint Jean Shur of the Black Dragon Mountain. Long Yun looked at Jian Wushuang solemnly. You are only a divine master, but you have the battle strength of a true saint. Your comprehension of the sword principle is so high that you have already surpassed many true saints. With such talent, Shuiyu and I are sure that you can enter the primordial palace of the three palaces. You can even enter the primal chaos palace, if you try your best to improve the rules. That's the primal chaos palace. Even if our Heaven-Cleaving Alliance gathers all the countless geniuses in the absolute beginning divine realm, there are only a few dozen people who can enter the primal chaos palace to cultivate in each era. If these people walk out from the primal chaos palace in the future, as long as they don't die midway, 99% of them can become masters of laws. Even Shuiyu and I yearn for such a place. Long Yun exclaimed, and Shuiyu, who was beside him, also showed a fanatical look. After a long while, Long Yun calmed down a little and asked, Brother Heavenly Marquis, how about it? Do you want to go to the core level of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance with me? Long Yun looked at Jian Wushuang with a look of anticipation. Hearing his words, Jian Wushuang thought for a while, and then shook his head. I'm sorry, but I refuse. What? Long Yun's face changed. Shuiyu, who was standing next to him, also looked at him in surprise. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance had three palaces, and it was the second-ranked primitive palace. It might even be the highest-level primal chaos palace. It was the cultivation holy land that countless top geniuses in the divine beginning world dreamed of. Countless experts fought for the chance to enter the three palaces, but they could not. But now, such a good opportunity was presented to them. As long as Jian Wushuang agreed to go with them, they guaranteed that Jian Wushuang would definitely be able to enter the primitive palace. But Jian Wushuang actually refused? Brother Heavenly Marquis, you have to think carefully. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance is the publicly recognized #1 alliance in the divine beginning world. We have the strength and means to reach the heavens. And the three palaces, any one of them is the dream of countless geniuses, especially the primitive palace and the chaos palace. Like me and Shuiyu, we are both top geniuses. Take Shuiyu for example. She is only a rank 1 true saint, and has just broken through to the rank 1 true saint realm. She has just mastered the immortal body, but her battle strength is strong enough to rival an ordinary rank 3 true saint. With such strength, she can only stay in the Heaven-Earth Palace. At the very least, you can join the primitive palace. This is a once-in-lifetime opportunity, Long Yun said anxiously. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang was a little surprised. What surprised him was Shuiyu's strength. Previously, he knew that Shuiyu was a heaven-grade member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, and was very strong. This could be seen from the fact that she easily killed the patriarch of the Black Dragon Mountain. However, Jian Wushuang did not expect that Shuiyu was only a rank 1 true saint, who had just mastered the immortal body. He was a rank 1 true saint who had just broken through. But his battle strength was comparable to an ordinary rank 3 true saint. His talent was impressive. However, Xueyu was only a member of the Heaven-Earth Palace, which was the lowest level among the 3 palaces. From this, it could be seen how great the talent level of the Primitive Palace and the Chaos Palace was. It was impossible for Jian Wushuang not to be tempted by such a cultivation holy land, which had gathered so many top geniuses of the Primitive Palace. Unfortunately, Jian Wushuang also had his own concerns and thoughts. Firstly, he did not want to have too many restrictions. Joining the 3 palaces of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance would indeed allow him to receive the most training, but at the same time, he would become a member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, and would have to work for the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance in the future. Secondly, and most importantly, he did not know the position and nature of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance at all. To be more precise, he did not know which side the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was on. One had to know that his identity was very sensitive. The will of the heavenly Tao clearly did not want him to live in this world. In the 3rd heaven, the 3 great holy regions, the 4 great divine races, and the 8 directions heavenly sect all wanted him dead. And the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, as the publicly acknowledged number 1 alliance in the absolute beginning divine realm. What position did he stand on? Was he on the side of the will of the heavenly Tao, the 3 great holy regions, the 4 great divine races, and the 8 directions heavenly sect? Or was he on the opposite side of the will of the heavenly Tao? It was similar to the 7-star mysterious sect, or it was neutral. Jian Wushuang knew nothing about this. Under such circumstances, why would he want to go to the core of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? Although the name of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance should not be on the same side as the will of heaven, what if? If the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was on the same side as the will of the heavenly Tao, would it not be suicidal for him to go to the core of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? In conclusion, even though he had some desire for the cultivation geniuses of the 3 palaces, he rejected them without hesitation. Sir Longyin, Sir Xueyu, I'm sorry. I'm not really interested in the 3 palaces you mentioned. Jian Wushuang rejected them again and stood up. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. Longyin frowned but soon relaxed. Well, since Brother Tianho doesn't want to join, I won't force you. But there's a token here. I hope you can keep it. In the future, if you come to your senses or meet with any trouble, you can contact me through this token. Seeing Longyin take out the token, Jian Wushuang hesitated for a moment and took it. Then he turned around and left. Chapter 2949. Secret Domain. Seeing Jian Wushuang completely disappear from their sight, Longyin and Xueyu both looked a bit unsightly. He refused. How could Heavenly Sword Marquis refuse to enter the Primitive Palace? Xueyu frowned and seemed to be in disbelief. Perhaps what we said was not comprehensive enough to truly move him. We had no choice but to report this matter to the higher-ups of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, and have them personally invite people to talk to him, Longyin said. Is it useful for the higher-ups to look for him? Xueyu was puzzled. I don't know, but it has nothing to do with us. As long as we report the news of the discovery of this peerless genius, we will be able to receive a big reward, Longyin said. That's true. Xueyu nodded slightly. The Primitive Palace, or even the Primal Chaos Palace, is like a pie falling from the sky to us, but Heavenly Sword Marquis doesn't care at all. It's really. Longyin and Xueyu were secretly amazed. The 385th nest of the Heaven-Slaying Alliance was also the nest Jian Wushuang had been in before. Jian Wushuang returned to the nest after completing the assessment. In the hall, Xue Dongqing was still waiting. When he saw Jian Wushuang walk out of the inner hall, Xue Dongqing immediately went up to him. Haha, Brother Tianho, you came out so quickly? Xue Dongqing smiled and asked. How about the assessment? What do you think? Jian Wushuang gently waved a token in his hand. This token was his identity token. Haha. I knew it would be a piece of cake for you to pass the assessment with your strength. Xue Dongqing laughed, and was not surprised at all. Come on, tell me, what did you encounter in this assessment? Jian Wushuang and Xue Dongqing sat down at the table next to them. And then Jian Wushuang, Also briefly explain the contents of the test. Thanks. There are actually 11 immortal saints alive in Black Dragon Mountain. Under such circumstances, it's really difficult for you to think of a way to kill those immortal saints in Black Dragon Mountain. Shuedong King pursed his lips and said, "It can't be helped. This is the test of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Although this task is difficult, many people have passed it." Jian Wushuang said with a smile, "By the way, Brother Heavenly Marquis, since you have passed this test, and you have officially become an ordinary member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, then the 3-star task we talked about before." Shuedong King looked at Jian Wushuang with eager eyes. "No problem. When will you set off?" Jian Wushuang asked with a smile. He had promised Shuedong King that he would go on an ordinary 3-star mission with him. Although it was only an ordinary mission, it was not too difficult since it had reached the 3-star level. Haha, there's no rush. Let's have a drink first. In addition, I'll tell you the details of this mission before we set off," Shuedong King said with a smile. Jian Wushuang nodded, and then listened to Shuedong King's explanation. An hour later, Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King both accepted the mission and set off together. The Dark Shout Realm was a medium-sized realm. This was the location of Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King's mission, which was also the lair of the 3 Saints of Shadow. At the edge of the Dark Shout Realm, there was a huge restriction that completely sealed the entire realm. Although the area covered by the restriction was huge, it was not very powerful. It could block ordinary divine masters, but to the immortal saint, it was just a decoration. At this moment, Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King had already arrived at the periphery of the restriction. Shadow 3 Saints have already turned the Dark Shout Realm into their own paradise. Not only have they completely closed the spatial passage of this realm, but they have also used a restriction to cover the entire Dark Shout Realm. If we want to enter the Dark Shout Realm, we have to forcibly break through this restriction. Although it's not difficult to break through this restriction, once we do, 3 Shadow Saints will definitely notice and know of our arrival, Shuedong King said. Next to him stood a figure wearing a gray robe and a gray mask. His aura was extremely cold and evil. This figure was Jian Wushuang. He had changed into the unique attire of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, and used the gray mask to turn himself into such a cold and evil figure. If you know, then you know. The 3 Shadow Saints are not weak. Even if they know that we are coming, they probably won't be too afraid. After all, in their eyes, I'm just a divine master and won't be a threat to them. As for you, Shuedong King, although you're very strong, the 3 of them can fight together. They won't be so scared that they will hide or run away, Jian Wushuang said. Well, in that case, let's force our way in. Shuedong King nodded. Immediately, Shuedong King waved his hand, and the terrifying divine power immediately tore a big hole in the restriction in front of them. Then Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King directly entered the Dark Shout Realm. In the center of the Dark Shout Realm, there was a huge swamp. The swamp was filled with a faint earthen yellow air current. In the deepest part of the swamp, there was a towering but huge temple. This divine hall was the Shadow Hall where the 3 Shadow Saints lived. At this moment, in the depths of the Shadow Hall, 3 human figures were gathered together. Haha, 1 month. Just 1 more month, and the Earth God fruit will ripen. It's been too long. Since the 3 of us discovered the Earth God fruit, it's been more than 100,000 years. During these 100,000 years, the 3 of us have been guarding here, and haven't left for even a moment. In order to cover up the news of this Earth God fruit, we had to use all kinds of methods to completely seal this dark domain. We were afraid that other experts would come and discover the existence of this Earth God fruit. And now our boring waiting days are coming to an end. 1 month, just 1 more month. The 3 shadows were obviously very excited. In the outside world, it was said that the 3 shadows had sealed the Dark Shout Realm because of their evil natures. They wanted to turn the Dark Shout Realm into their paradise and enslave all the cultivators in this realm. However, that was not the case. They only had one true goal, and that was the Earth God fruit that was about to mature in the Dark Shout Realm. The Earth God fruit is an excellent treasure that cultivates the laws of the earth. Its value is shocking, and it's enough to make many true saints fight for it. especially those who comprehend the laws of the earth. Among the three shadow saint, a cold old man in a gray robe was smiling sinisterly. Chapter 2950. Three Sages of the Shadow. As far as I know, the only true saint in this territory is someone who understands the laws of the earth. If he knew that there was an earth god fruit here, he would definitely rush over like crazy. Unfortunately, he doesn't know about this place at all. The cold old man said with a cold smile. The value of this earth god fruit is shocking. If we had a good channel, we could definitely sell it for an astronomical price. The true saint in our surrounding territory is only a first-level true saint. How could he have the qualifications to possess such a good treasure? Another black-haired skinny man said in a low voice. No matter what, we only need to wait here for a month. After a month, when the earth god fruit ripens, we will think of a way to sell it. Then we will be rich. The last fat bald youth said with a strange smile. The three of them chatted leisurely. At this moment, the three's expressions suddenly changed. The restriction that covered the entire Darkshout realm was set up by the three of them together. When this restriction was torn apart, the three of them simultaneously sensed it. Someone tore apart the restriction and directly barged in. The gloomy and cold old man said in a deep voice. The restriction set up by the three of us might cover a large area, but no one below the undying sage should be able to break it. Now that it's been torn open, the immortal saint must have taken action, the black-haired skinny man said in a cold voice. Third brother, take a careful look. Okay. The chubby bald youth nodded. Then, he closed his eyes and began to investigate. The restrictions of the three of them were formed with the bald youth as the core. The bald youth was able to merge into the restrictions and clearly see the area that had been torn apart. I saw it. There are two people who have torn apart the restrictions. If nothing unexpected happens, one of them should be the Shuedong King, the bald youth said. Shuedong King? It's him. The cold old man and the black-haired skinny man frowned. Shuedong King had a strange temper and was extremely powerful. Not only was he famous in the Inkstone realm, but he was also quite famous in the surrounding realms. This was especially true after Shuedong King had broken through to become an immortal saint. His strength had soared and his name had naturally become even more famous. Although the three of them had stayed in the Darkshout realm all year round to wait, they still maintained contact with the outside world. Naturally, they had heard of this Shuedong King. We don't have any entanglements with this Shuedong King. What is he doing here? Moreover, it has to be at this time? The black-haired skinny man said in a deep voice. Third brother, you just said that there were two people who came together. Where is the other one? The cold-looking elder asked. There is another person wearing a gray robe and a gray mask on his face. From the looks of it, he should also be a member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, the bald youth said. Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? The cold elder was immediately shocked. However, the aura emitted by this person from the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance is only at the Divine Master level. There's no need to pay any attention to him, the bald youth said. Divine Master? The cold elder looked over in surprise. Third brother looked carefully. Is that person really just a Divine Master? Of course I saw him very clearly. Moreover, with my perceptive ability, even an ordinary first-level true saint wouldn't be able to conceal his aura in front of me. It's impossible for him to conceal his aura, the bald youth said with certainty. If that's the case, then it's still fine. The cold old man and the black-haired skinny man both let out a sigh of relief. If the person who had arrived was the Shuedong King, an immortal saint whose strength was unknown in the outside world, then they would definitely be nervous, worried that the Shuedong King duo would attack them. However, now that they knew that the person who had come with the Shuedong King was only a Divine Master, there was nothing to worry about. Although Shuedong King's strength was extraordinary, and he was extremely strong among the peak false saints, very close to the true saints, with the combined strength of the three of them, they could still contend against him. If they used a few more tricks, they were even confident that they could beat Shuedong King back. Because of this, they were not worried about Shuedong King at all. As for the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance expert who came with Shuedong King, He was just a mere divine master. Even if he was a peak invincible divine master, they would not care too much about him. Such a lineup would only make them treat him seriously, but it would not make them choose to run for their lives. No matter what, at this juncture, Shuedong King and Shuedong King came uninvited. We still have to be careful. Third brother, use your restriction to hide the earth god fruit. Don't let them see any clues when you go, said the cold old man. Don't worry. With me here, even if he uses his soul power, he won't be able to find anything, the bald youth said with a smile. That's good. Let's go and welcome him, the cold elder said. Immediately, the three of them went to the sky above the swamp and waited there quietly. Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King tore the restriction and entered the dark shout domain. They flew toward the center and soon arrived above the swamp. Sure enough, the three shadow saints knew we were coming and were already waiting there. Jian Wushuang looked ahead and could clearly see the three figures standing in the void. Humph, these three guys are really bold. They knew we were coming and were probably looking for trouble, but they didn't run away. They are courting death. Shuedong King sneered. They are courting death. Jian Wushuang also sneered. In the blink of an eye, the two people had already appeared in front of the third saint. The third saint stood proudly in the void. When he saw Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King, he was not nervous or afraid at all. Shuedong King, and this friend from the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, may I know why you have come to my secret realm? The leader of the third saint shadow, the cold elder, asked indifferently. Our purpose is very simple. We only have one purpose. That is to send you three brothers to the road of the underworld and make a trip there, Shuedong King said directly. Send us to the road of the underworld? The three shadow saints' faces immediately turned cold. Shuedong King, you are too arrogant. Not long ago, you were just a divine master. Even if you have some strength, you are just an ant in front of us three brothers. Now, although you have reached the immortal saint realm, and your battle strength is much stronger than before, you can't take advantage of us alone, can you? The cold elder said in a low voice. Haha, that may not be the case. The corners of Shuedong King's mouth curled up slightly. He glanced at Jian Wushuang and said softly, Brother Tianho, I'll test the strength of the three shadow saints first. Wait until it's about time for you to watch, then attack. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded. Chapter 2951. Looking down on me? Haha, three shadow saints, allow me to meet you. Maniacal laughter reverberated in the air. Boom! A terrifying aura erupted from Shuedong King's body, and he dashed out, a long green saber appearing in his hand. Following the sound of rushing wind, the long green saber slashed out like a bolt of green lightning with mighty momentum. Attack together and kill him. The leader of the three shadow saints, the cold old man, shouted. Instantly, three auras at the level of immortal saints rose up. None of these three auras could compare to Shuedong King, but at this moment, the three of them were working together. Moreover, the three shadow saints had lived together for a long time, fighting and fighting together. Their cooperation had reached an extremely tacit level. When they worked together, they were not afraid of any top false saint. Bang! 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 A low sound of collision and explosion was heard in the void. Each time they collided, a violent wave of air swept out crazily in the surroundings. Jian Wushuang stood at the edge and looked at the battlefield in front of him. He had no intention of attacking. As I expected, Shuedong King had hidden a lot of his strength when he fought with me. His real combat strength is definitely the strongest among the top false saints. He is infinitely close to an ordinary true saint. However, the strength of the three shadow saints is not weak. If the three of them were to split up, their combat strength would only be at the level of an ordinary immortal saint. However, with the three of them working together, they can fight head-on with Shuedong King. Jian Wushuang praised. He could clearly see that on the battlefield, the Shuedong King and the three shadow saints had already used all their strength, but the two sides were evenly matched. In terms of advantage, the Shuedong King barely had an advantage, but this advantage was negligible. Moreover, the three shadow saints seemed to have a trump card that they had yet to use. Haha, Shuedong King, I admit that your strength is tyrannical in the many surrounding domains. Other than that lord who has already reached the true saint level, I'm afraid that no one is your match. Unfortunately, your strength is only about the same as the three of us brothers. Do you want to kill us? You're simply dreaming. The gloomy and cold old man laughed loudly. Shuedong King's face darkened, but he also shook his head and felt helpless. Indeed, I can't do anything to you three alone, but I'm not the only one here. Shuedong King grinned and looked at Jian Wushuang. Brothers of the Heavenly Marquis, let's kill them together. The three shadows immediately looked at Jian Wushuang with disdain in their eyes. From the beginning to the end, they did not take Jian Wushuang, a divine master, seriously. However, Jian Wushuang smiled faintly and thought to himself, these three brothers are not weak. If I fight them head-on, I'll have to spend some means to kill them. In that case, I won't waste time with them. I'll just kill them one by one. Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with a sharp light. He instantly turned into a stream of light and shot out. The Blood Mountain sword had already appeared in his hand. A mere divine master dares to participate in a fierce battle at the level of the immortal saint. He's courting death. A trace of contempt flashed through the bald youth who ranked third. With a wave of his hand, a majestic divine power gathered in front of him and formed a huge fist that attacked Jian Wushuang. Oh, are you looking down on me? Jian Wushuang curled his lips slightly. He did not even bother to wave his sword as he looked at the incoming fist. With just a thought, an invisible sword shadow instantly condensed in front of him and then burst out. The sword shadow crushed the fist that had gathered divine power. It directly tore the fist into pieces. Jian Wushuang's figure was not hindered at all. He had already appeared in front of the bald young man. Third brother, be careful. Dodge. The cold elder and the black-haired skinny man were shocked because they had already seen a beautiful sword light. The sword light was so beautiful that it was intoxicating. It was incredibly fast. What? The bald young man widened his eyes and looked at the beautiful sword light coming toward him, but he could not react at all. Chi! The beautiful sword light brushed past the bald young man's neck, and the bald young man's entire head flew out. The first one. Jian Wushuang smiled and appeared next to the black-haired skinny man. Whoosh! It was also an extremely beautiful sword attack, but it directly created a huge sword net. The sword net was like a ferocious beast that opened its bloody mouth, wanting to swallow the black-haired skinny man completely. Second brother, run! The cold old man not far away shouted. The black-haired skinny man had already reacted. If the three of them worked together, their battle strength would indeed be tyrannical. Unless they met a true saint, they would not have any scruples. But if the three of them were to be disintegrated and killed one by one, they would only have the battle strength of an ordinary immortal saint. Now that the bald youth had been killed on the spot, the three-man alliance had been broken, leaving only the two of them to escape. Run! The black-haired skinny man instantly burst out his fastest speed, wanting to escape the sword net before it completely covered him. However, at this time, Jian Wushuang suddenly raised one of his palms and pointed in his direction. The power of the space-time rule immediately burst out. The space-time where the black-haired skinny man was immediately frozen. It was so heavy that it was almost negligible. However, in such a short time, the sword net had completely enveloped the black-haired skinny man, and a large number of sword lights attacked him. The black-haired skinny man did not even have time to scream before his divine body was crushed into pieces. No. Seeing this scene, the cold elder's eyes became bloodshot and crazy. It was too fast. Jian Wushuang was too fast. At first, none of the three brothers thought much of Jian Wushuang as a divine master. However, Jian Wushuang killed the third brother, the bald youth, in an instant, and then the second brother with a thunderbolt. That was the black-haired skinny man. The cold-faced elder saw everything, but he could not help them in time. He could only watch as his two brothers were mercilessly killed by Jian Wushuang. Your two brothers are already dead. Now it's your turn. Jian Wushuang smiled coldly. Chapter 2952, Discovery. Haha, third Saint Umbra, I'd like to see if you're dead or not. Shuedong King laughed coldly. The cold elder's body trembled as if he had gone mad. His scarlet eyes also looked at Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King. Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King were in the middle of him. The cold elder knew very well that in this situation, he had no chance of survival. Shuedong King and you. Good. Good. I, the third shadow saint, have dominated the endless territories for so many years. Today, I am finally defeated by you. However, although we three brothers are dead, you will not have a good time. The cold elder shouted. Humph! Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King had already stepped forward. With their combined efforts, the cold elder was killed in an instant. But before he was killed, a message was sent out from the cold elder's hand. In the void, Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King stood side by side. The three shadow saints are dead, Jian Wushuang said coldly. It's all thanks to you, brother Heavenly Marquis. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so easy to kill the three brothers. Shuedong King chuckled. It's a good thing that I asked you to complete this 3-star mission. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been easy for me to kill the three shadow saints alone. Compared to those below the true saint realm, this ordinary 3-star mission is indeed a little difficult. Jian Wushuang nodded. This mission was to kill the three shadow saints. But Jian Wushuang also saw the strength of the three shadow saints. It was too difficult for an ordinary peak false saint to complete this mission. Even for an existence like Shuedong King, who was infinitely close to a true saint, it was also a bit difficult to face such a mission. Brothers of the Heaven Marquis, since the three shadow saints are dead, let's distribute the resources and treasures in their interspatial rings, Shuedong King suggested. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded. The two immediately began to distribute the treasures. The three shadow saints were real immortal saints, and had collected a lot of resources. They had obtained a lot of resources, but unfortunately, they did not have any precious treasures in their interspatial rings. The task is completed. Brother Heavenly Marquis, let's go back, Shuedong King said. Don't worry. Jian Wushuang waved his hand to stop him. What's wrong? Shuedong King looked at him. Have you noticed that the place where the three shadow saints live, the palace below, is a bit special? Jian Wushuang said. The palace is special? Shuedong King was stunned, and immediately covered it with his soul power. This palace is nothing special except for a layer of special restriction at the bottom, Shuedong King said. It's the special restriction, Jian Wushuang said in a deep voice. The restriction is at the bottom of the palace, which means it's underground. If I saw such an underground restriction, I would think that there is a secret chamber. The third Saint Shadow was in seclusion in the secret chamber, so he specially set up a restriction to prevent anyone from disturbing him. But now, the third Saint Shadow has come out, and no one is in the secret room. Why is the restriction still open? If it's really just a restriction covering the secret room, they can use some of the restrictions at will. With their strength, even if they set up a restriction casually, no one should be able to break it in the secret shout domain. But look at the layer of restrictions below. It's very powerful. Most importantly, the restriction has the ability of confusion and concealment. So you and I can't see what's on the other end of the restriction. That's strange. Upon hearing Jian Wushuang's words, Shuedong King also revealed a strange expression. Brother Heavenly Marquis, are you saying that there is a secret hidden on the other side of the restriction? Shuedong King asked. I don't know, but since we have found something strange there is no harm in going to take a look. Let's go down. Jian Wushuang smiled, and immediately headed down to the palace. The palace used to be where the third Shadow Saints clan lived. There were a lot of maids and servants in the palace, but now because of the death of the third Shadow Saints clan, the maids and servants were scared and fled in all directions. Of course, they were both surprised and delighted at the same time. The strength of the third Shadow Saints clan meant that they could finally get rid of the hands of the three demons. Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King had already appeared at the bottom of the palace, in front of the restriction. This restriction does look powerful. Shuedong King looked at the restriction in front of him, and waved the long saber in his hand. An extremely domineering saber light directly broke the restriction in front of him. When the restriction was broken, many things hidden under the restriction were immediately exposed to Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King. When they swept their soul power, they were stunned. Whoosh! Whoosh! Their figures appeared next to a pool as if they had teleported. It was called a pool, but there was no water in it. Instead, there were all kinds of black mud. In the center of the pool, which was the center of the survivors, there was an earthy yellow fruit tree. On the tree, there was an earthy yellow fruit the size of a baby's head. The earthy yellow fruit emitted a special fragrance. The fruit was surrounded by a hazy earthy yellow energy. Jian Wuxuang and Shui Dongqing both recognized this energy. It was the power of the law of the earth. What a rich power of the law of the earth. What kind of treasure is this fruit? Jian Wuxuang's eyes sparkled. Tut tut, no wonder it was covered with restriction. There is such a fruit hidden here. Shui Dongqing also praised. I don't know what this fruit is, but judging from the power of earth rules covered on the surface of the fruit, it must be a treasure that is very useful for comprehending the earth rules. It's a treasure, and its value should be extraordinary. Jian Wuxuang nodded secretly, but then his expression became strange. No, there's something wrong with this fruit. If I'm not wrong, it should not be fully ripe. Not fully ripe? Shui Dongqing was stunned, but then he understood. It was indeed not fully ripe. If it had been fully ripe, the third saint would not have let it stay here. It would have picked it long ago. I see. No wonder 3 shadow saints would close all the space passages leading to the outside world and completely cover the entire Dark Shout realm with restrictions. It turns out that he did not want to make the Dark Shout realm a better paradise for them, but for this fruit. They were worried that a powerful immortal saint would come to the Dark Shout realm and discover the fruit, so they simply sealed the realm completely. Jian Wuxuang said in a deep voice. Chapter 2953. Star Sea Saint. So that's how it is? Shui Dongqing was quick-witted. After hearing Jian Wuxuang's words, he understood everything. The 3 shadow saints are really well hidden. If we hadn't come here to carry out the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's mission and killed the 3 of them, we wouldn't have known that such a treasure was hidden here, Shui Dongqing said. It's a pity that the 3 shadow saints waited for the fruit to appear for so many years, but in the end, it still benefited you and me for nothing, Jian Wuxuang said with a smile. Yes. Shui Dongqing's eyes were also shining. The fragrance of the fruit is already very strong. It's only missing the last bit of transformation. If I'm not mistaken, the fruit should be completely ripe in a month or so. A month? Jian Wuxuang was delighted. Both he and Shui Dongqing could tell that this fruit was not an ordinary object. Otherwise, the 3 Shadow Saint clan would not have spent so much effort to protect this place for so many years. Now that the 3 Shadow Saint clan were dead, those who knew about the existence of this fruit. Oh no! Jian Wuxuang's expression suddenly changed. What's wrong? Shui Dongqing immediately looked over. I'm afraid it won't be that easy for us to completely occupy the fruit, Jian Wuxuang said. What do you mean? Shui Dongqing was puzzled. Do you remember what the 3rd Shadow Saint said before he died? He said that although the 3 brothers are dead, neither of us will have a good life. Jian Wuxuang's voice was cold. I thought the 3rd elder of the 3 Shadow Saints was just saying it casually, but now it seems that it's not that simple. Shui Dongqing frowned. The cold elder did say that when he died. If I'm not wrong, the 3rd elder of the Shadow 3 Saints knew that he was going to die, so he must have secretly spread the news of this fruit before we killed him. Even if he didn't, he must have told others, Jian Wuxuang said. What? Shui Dongqing was shocked. The fruit was obviously very valuable, and it was not ripe yet. They could not pick it and leave immediately. They had to wait here quietly for a month. If the cold elder really spread the news, then there would be other experts who would come to fight with them during the month. If that's the case, then it's troublesome, Shui Dongqing said with a frown. It's very troublesome. The key is that neither of us knows what this fruit is, or its specific value. We don't know what level of experts it will attract, Jian Wuxuang said. If only some false saints were attracted by the fruit, he would not care even if a peak false saint appeared. But if a true saint was also attracted, then it would be really troublesome. Brother Heavenly Marquis, Shui Dongqing's brows suddenly relaxed, and he also had a smile on his face. Right now, we're not sure if the boss of the 3 Shadow Saints has spread the news. Even if he did spread the news, if an ordinary expert came, the the two of us would be able to easily resist him. In this territory, the only one who has the battle strength of a true saint is that Star Sea Saint. But he's only a first-level true saint. Even if he personally arrives, the two of us can barely resist him. Besides, even if we can't resist it, we can just leave the fruit. After all, our mission has been completed, and the fruit is just an unexpected surprise. Haha, you're right. Jian Wushuang nodded. Indeed, they had many choices. There was no need to worry or struggle now. Just wait. A month will pass very quickly. Maybe no one will come after a month. Shuedong King smiled. Immediately, Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King waited quietly in the underground of the palace. It was a vast and boundless void. In the void, there were many beautiful and dazzling stars. A dense mass of stars formed together, forming a vast sea of stars. And in the center of this sea of stars, there was a majestic continent floating. In the center of the continent, there was a 10,000 zhang tall mountain palace. There was a bamboo forest. In the depths of the bamboo forest, there was a bamboo house. Inside the bamboo house, there was a middle-aged man dressed in gray robes. The cold and arrogant middle-aged man, who had his eyes on the stage, was sitting cross-legged there. This cold and arrogant middle-aged man was the only true saint known in the surrounding territories, the Star Ocean Saint. The Star Ocean Saint was an expert who comprehended the laws of the earth. His comprehension of the laws of the earth was extremely high. In order to comprehend the laws of the earth, he did not even wear shoes all year round. He walked barefoot and brought his body closer to the earth. Whoosh! A figure shot out from the void at the fastest speed, landing in this bamboo forest. Then, he walked to the front of the bamboo house and bowed respectfully. Greetings, Saint Lord. The Star Sea Saint also controlled a force, and he was respectfully called the Saint Lord in that force. Come in. The Star Sea Saint waved his hand, and the bamboo door opened. The graceful woman who had already reached the level of the immortal saint quickly walked into the bamboo house. What's the matter? The Star Sea Saint asked. His voice was cold and emotionless. He was the only true saint in this territory, and his strength was publicly acknowledged to be the strongest. He was already high and mighty, and now he was only focused on reaching a higher level of cultivation. As for other things, he could not be bothered to pay attention to them. Moreover, for the current him, there were very few people in this territory who could make him pay attention to them. Saint Lord, I just received news from an immortal saint who has a good relationship with me. He said that not long ago, the boss of the 3 Shadow Saints had personally sent him a message saying that there was a special treasure in the Dark Shout territory that he occupied. The graceful woman said. Special treasure? What is it? The Star Sea Saint's expression did not change. Earth God fruit. The graceful woman said directly. What did you say? The Star Sea Saint, who had a calm and indifferent expression, stood up directly, his hair and beard blowing. Is what you said true? Is there really an Earth God fruit in the realm of Secret Shout? The Star Sea Saint looked at the graceful woman excitedly. That good friend of mine wouldn't lie to me. As for the 3 Shadow Saints, I've sent people to investigate it carefully. I've also received internal information from the Dark Rebuke territory. The 3 Shadow Saints had met a great enemy a few days ago and died. The news was sent by them before they died. In addition, they said that the great enemy god fruit would take another month to ripen, said the graceful woman. Chapter 2954. The true sage has arrived. It will take another month to ripen? The Starry Sea Saint was immediately overjoyed. Haha, since the boss of the 3 Shadow Saints said it before he died, it's most likely not a lie. Moreover, since he said that the Earth God fruit will take another month to ripen, then it can't be a lie. In other words, this news is 100% true. Yes, I made the same judgment. That's why I immediately came to report to you, Saint Lord, the graceful woman said. In addition, I have also investigated everything clearly. There were 2 people who killed the 3 Shadow Saints, and they were all from the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. One of them was Shuedong King, who had just broken through to the saint level not long ago. The reason why they acted was that they accepted a 3-star mission from the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, and that 3-star mission was to kill the 3 Shadow Saints. Then where are these 2 now? Are they still staying in the Dark Shout realm? The Star Sea Saint said. Yes, as expected. These 2 have also discovered the existence of the Earth God fruit, so they have been waiting there. They want to wait for the Earth God fruit to ripen and pluck it before leaving, said the graceful woman. Haha, these 2 have a good plan, but unfortunately, since I know about this matter, the Earth God fruit is mine. No one can take it away. The Star Sea Saint's eyes shone with a strong light. You did a good job. I'll go to the Dark Shout realm first, and reward you after I get the Earth God fruit, Star Sea Saint said. Thank you, Saint Lord. The graceful woman was overjoyed. The Star Sea Saint did not stay for long, and went straight to the Dark Shout realm as fast as he could. In the temple of the swamp in the Dark Shout realm, Jian Wuxia and Shuedong King were drinking and chatting casually. They were waiting for the earthy yellow fruit to ripen. And now the fruit was very close to ripen. But at this moment, buzz! An extremely powerful aura, which was obviously above that of an ordinary immortal saint, came pressing down. The aura was vast and majestic, covering the entire swamp. Jian Wuxia and Shuedong King, who were in the hall, were immediately alarmed by this aura. This aura, it's a true saint. Jian Wuxia's expression changed. Damn it! A true saint expert actually came, Shuedong King cursed. Without any hesitation, they immediately rose up and appeared in the void above. When they arrived in the void, they saw the cold and arrogant middle-aged man with bare feet. The cold and arrogant middle-aged man with bare feet sized up Jian Wuxia and Shuedong King with his profound eyes. He is indeed the Star Sea Saint. Shuedong King's body trembled as he whispered. It is said that the Star Sea Saint is an expert who has comprehended the rules of the earth. He must have learned of the existence of the earth yellow fruit and rushed here. I think so. Jian Wuxia nodded. But he is the only one who has arrived. I wonder if there will be other experts of the true saint realm. No, he is the only true saint in this territory. The other true saints are far away in other realms. It will take a while to get the news. It will take a longer time to get here from their territory. But the Star Sea Saint alone is not to be trifled with. Shuedong King sighed. True saints and false saints, although they were both immortal saints, and there was only a one-word difference, the difference between them was abnormally huge. Although Shuedong King was a peak false saint, and was very close to a true saint, no matter how close he was, as long as he grasped the immortal body, and did not truly possess true saint battle strength, he was already on 2 completely different levels. The Shuedong King was not afraid of any of the immortal saints around this realm when facing the 3 Shadow Saints. However, he was indeed a little afraid when facing the Star Sea Saint. Shuedong King greets the Star Sea Saint Lord. Shuedong King bowed slightly. You are Shuedong King? The Starry Sea Saint spoke. His voice was cold and emotionless. I already know that you killed the 3 Shadow Saints, and I also know that the 3rd Shadow Saint realm has been hiding the Earth God fruit. This Earth God fruit is very useful for comprehending the rules of the earth, and is also very useful to me. That's why I came here. Earth God fruit. Jian Wuxia and Shuedong King were surprised. They did not know the Earth God fruit before, but now they knew from the Star Sea Saint that it was called the Earth God fruit. With the name of the earth, one could imagine how helpful the Earth God fruit was to the rules of the earth. Star Sea Saint Master, there is indeed an Earth God fruit in the Dark Shout realm, which is at the bottom of the palace below, Shuedong King admitted directly. There was nothing he could do. As soon as Sea Star Saint arrived, he immediately released his soul power and saw everything around him. Naturally, he also saw the existence of the Earth God fruit. It was useless for him to deny it. But the Earth God fruit was discovered by the 2 of us first after all, Shuedong King said with a frown. No, the Earth God fruit was discovered by the 3 Shadow Saints first. And if nothing goes wrong, they should have been waiting in the Dark Shout realm for a long time. Unfortunately, the Earth God fruit was about to mature, but the 3 of them died at the hands of the 2 of you. The 2 of you also took advantage of the Earth God fruit, but fortunately, the Earth God fruit is still some time away from maturity. Sea Star Saint smiled coldly. How about this? Since all of you have been waiting for this earth god fruit for a few days, I promise to give each of you 1,000,000 sacred elixirs. How about it? 1,000,000 sacred elixirs? Shuedong King's heart skipped a beat as he frowned slightly. 1,000,000 sacred elixirs was indeed not a low price. One had to know that many immortal saints with average strength only had around 500,000 to 600,000 sacred elixirs. Only the wealthier ones were able to take out more than 1,000,000 sacred elixirs. After all, Shuedong King had just broken through to the immortal saint realm and possessed the battle strength of a peak false saint. He did not have much time to accumulate wealth. Therefore, 1,000,000 saint elixirs was not a small amount to him. Although 1,000,000 saint elixirs was not a small amount, it was still insignificant compared to the true value of the earth god fruit. Although Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King did not know how much the earth god fruit was worth, according to their estimates, it was at least 30,000,000 saint elixirs. It was too much to expect Star Sea Saint to take 2,000,000 saint elixirs for such a precious thing. Star Sea Saint Lord, right? I don't lack 1,000,000 saint elixirs. Compared to 1,000,000 saint elixirs, I'm more likely to get the earth god fruit, so. Jian Wushuang did not finish his words. Shut up. Star Sea Saint was stunned. I'm talking to Shuedong King. Since when did you, a divine master, dare to interrupt me? As soon as he finished his sentence, Star Sea Saint rolled up his sleeves. Immediately, endless rules of the earth gathered in front of him, forming a huge earthy yellow hand that directly fanned toward Jian Wushuang. Chapter 2955. Peak Stage 1. Jian Wushuang frowned slightly. The Blood Mountain sword in his hand moved the boundless sword tree, which was 33,000 feet tall, and instantly, a huge sword shadow slashed out. The sword shadow directly cut the giant earthy yellow palm into two halves. The power of the earth rules spread out in all directions. Oh! Star Sea Saint raised his eyebrows and looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. A divine master was able to block my attack head-on. No wonder you two worked together and killed the 3 shadow saints. However, your strength is far from enough. I'll give you one last chance. It's still 1,000,000 saint elixirs per person. Get lost immediately or else. A cold light appeared in the Star Sea Saint's eyes. Shuedong King's expression changed. He said in a low voice, Star Sea Saint Lord, are you forcing us? Humph. Although you are the #1 expert in the surrounding territories, and a true saint expert, I and the Heavenly Sword Marquis might be able to fight you. Really? A sneer suddenly appeared on the corner of Star Sea Saint's mouth. Stupid, you underestimate me too much. Well, since you two want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. As soon as he finished his words, Star Sea Saint moved. At the moment he moved, a terrifying divine power burst out from Star Sea Saint's body. This divine power was shocking enough to change the color of heaven and earth. This divine power. Jian Wushuang's pupils suddenly shrank. Damn it! Shuedong King's expression also changed greatly. They all felt that the divine power emitted by the Star Sea Saint was not only superior to that of a false saint, but also extremely powerful among true saints. Level 2? No, he hasn't reached the level of a level 2 true saint yet, but he's at least at the peak of level 1. We're in big trouble, Shuedong King said in a low voice. Peak of level 1 true saint. Jian Wushuang's eyes narrowed. They were both level 1 true saints, but there were differences in strength. Judging from the divine power of the Star Sea Saint, he was much stronger than the level 1 true saint, Saint Hong, who had fought with him in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Such strength. Shuedong King, be careful. Jian Wushuang shouted. However, the Star Sea Saint was too fast. As soon as he revealed himself, he had already appeared in front of Shuedong King like a ghost. Although Shuedong King was shocked, he immediately reacted and waved the cyan long saber in his hand. The cyan long saber turned into a huge cyan phantom and directly slashed out with boundless divine power. Shuedong King had already unleashed his strongest strength at this moment. Ridiculous! The Star Sea Saint sneered and slapped his palm forward. This slap was like a huge world pressing down. The huge cyan phantom instantly dissipated, and even the cyan-colored long saber in Shuedong King's hand was sent flying. Puff! Shui Dongqing spat out a mouthful of blood and shot backward in a sorry state. With just one strike in one palm, Shui Dongqing, who was at peak false saint realm and was infinitely close to the true saint realm, was seriously injured. You have to die too. The Star Sea Saint's eyes were filled with monstrous malice. After severely injuring Shui Dongqing with one palm, he moved again and appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. Whoosh! The same palm struck out from above and ferociously slammed down on Jian Wushuang. Rumble! The endless power of the earth's rules immediately formed a towering mountain in the void and pressed down on Jian Wushuang. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang's face darkened. The power of the attack is so strong just by relying on divine power and the power of the earth's rules. Although he was shocked, Jian Wushuang still waved his hand. A shocking sword shadow wanted to tear the sky and earth apart, but it could not completely split the mountain. Then the towering mountain continued to crush Jian Wushuang. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang was also forced back, but his divine body was not damaged. Brother Heavenly Sword Marquis, Shui Dongqing, who had already retreated far away, immediately looked at Jian Wushuang. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Stay away from me. Leave this guy to me, Jian Wushuang said coldly. Leave him to you. Shui Dongqing could not help but be startled. The Star Sea Saint did not make a move, but the moment he did, he was immediately frightened. The battle strength of a true saint at the peak of rank 1 was too terrifying for him to contend with. In his opinion, even if he and Jian Wushuang joined hands, the possibility of fighting against the Star Sea Saint was slim. But now, Jian Wushuang wanted him to fight against the Star Sea Saint alone? Was that possible? A true saint at the peak of the first rank is a good opponent. Jian Wushuang looked at the Star Sea Saint with excitement in his eyes. He really wanted to fight with a real expert. Only by fighting with experts could his strength increase and become stronger. However, most of the cultivators he met were too weak. For example, in the Heaven Cleaving Alliance's assessment, his strongest opponent was only a peak false saint. He could not force out his true strength. Now that a powerful true saint at the peak of rank 1 was born in front of him, he naturally did not want to miss it. I want to see how strong you are as the #1 expert in this territory, Jian Wushuang said coldly. The surging divine power on his body slowly rose. Battle intent? Star Sea Saint looked at Jian Wushuang with a strange expression. He admitted that Jian Wushuang was not weak. During the fight, Shui Dongqing was seriously injured by his attack, but Jian Wushuang was not injured at all. But that did not mean that a divine master could fight him head-on. I'm also looking forward to what tricks you can play, Star Sea Saint sneered, not taking Jian Wushuang seriously at all. The majestic golden divine power on Jian Wushuang's body began to condense, and in the blink of an eye, a 30,000-meter-tall golden emperor phantom appeared behind him. The golden emperor's eyes were cold as he looked down at everything in the world. At the same time, his aura also soared, and a layer of dark golden armor appeared on his body. 7-star secret skill, divine punishment, 9 luminary star armor. The 3 secret skills had been used at the same time. Jian Wushuang's strength reached its peak in an instant. Splash! A huge blood-red river gushed out. Chapter 2956. A head-on battle. The blood-red river surged in the sky. A faint dark gold light surrounded the surface of the river and instantly filled the entire world. The 9-universe Bloodlight River, Star Armor Domain, and Punishment Prison had all been activated. Under Jian Wushuang's full effort, the 3 domains pressed crazily on the Star Sea Saint. A domain-type holy treasure? Star Sea Saint's eyes shone with a dark light. A divine master has such a treasure. Not bad. What else do you have? Bring it out. Star Sea Saint looked at Jian Wushuang calmly. Jian Wushuang was too lazy to answer. After his battle strength had reached its peak, he directly attacked. Whoosh! His figure burst forth as if he had teleported. Jian Wushuang appeared in front of the Star Sea Saint. He held his sword with one hand and slowly raised it. Then he made a slash. This slash seemed to be an understatement. But in fact, the moment it was made, Jian Wushuang's sword essence and the power of the boundless sword tree in his body had been exerted to the maximum. Buzz buzz buzz. A large number of space-time rules condensed with the sword essence, time-space blades condensed. There were more than 400 densely packed time-space blades, and these time-space blades had completely merged with the sword essence. The space-time rules and swordsmanship were perfectly combined. Boom! A fierce wind suddenly swept up between heaven and earth, and a huge sword-edged storm completely covered the void where the Star Sea Saint was. The power of this sword doesn't seem weak. The Star Sea Saint looked calmly at the sword blade storm, but a faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He flipped his palm, and an ancient giant hammer appeared in his hand. This giant hammer probably weighed hundreds of millions of pounds, and its surface was surrounded by faint earthy yellow energy. As the Star Sea Saint raised his right hand, the giant hammer was also raised high. Endless power of the laws of the earth began to gather in the Star Sea Saint's hand. Heaven and earth split. The Star Sea Saint shouted in a low voice, and the giant hammer in his hand instantly fell down. It was a giant hammer that weighed hundreds of millions of kilograms. But when the giant hammer fell down at this moment, it was like a sharp battle knife. With incredible power, it instantly split the storm of sword blades. Then the overwhelming power crushed the sword essence in the sword storm. After the huge hammer fell, a visible crack appeared in the world. This crack was very obvious. Whoosh! Jian Wuxia rolled and shot backward. He retreated a long distance and finally stopped. After stopping, he looked up at Star Sea Saint again with a hint of surprise in his eyes. So powerful. This power is too powerful. Jian Wuxia praised in his heart. Boy, is this all you can do? Star Sea Saint looked at Jian Wuxia coldly with a giant hammer in one hand. Humph! Jian Wuxia snorted and communicated with the Blood Mountain sword with his mind. Buzz! A shocking sword essence suddenly burst out. This sword essence was not very powerful, but it was extremely extraordinary. It was a supreme sword essence that carried a shocking will. The sword essence swept across the world, and all the people in the world were ants. Jian Wuxia held the Blood Mountain sword tightly, and felt the supreme sword essence that burst out of the Blood Mountain sword. Millions of people in the world had to submit to this supreme sword essence. At this moment, he was the king of millions of sword principles. This sword essence is so strong. The Star Sea Saint's pupils constricted, and his expression gradually became serious. The supreme sword essence had been guided, and Jian Wuxia's battle strength instantly soared. Again. Without any unnecessary words, Jian Wuxia stepped forward again. He directly appeared in front of the Star Sea Saint, and the Blood Mountain sword in his hand had already been silently slashed out. This sword did not display any overly shocking sword techniques, but under the sweep of that supreme sword intent, the void was easily torn apart by the sword light, and the air was torn apart. A majestic sword light brought with it a supreme aura. It suddenly swept toward the Star Sea Saint. Facing this sword, even the Star Sea Saint did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. At this moment, he held the giant hammer in both hands. The earth and yellow energy gathered in the sky, and the giant hammer in his hands suddenly expanded in size. It struck out like a small mountain. Boom! The giant hammer swept across the void, and the void seemed to be unable to withstand his power. It trembled crazily and let out a low rumble. In the blink of an eye, the giant hammer and the Blood Mountain sword collided again. Ha! Jian Wuxia's eyes focused. He still felt a great pressure from the giant hammer. Even though he had channeled the supreme sword essence, and his battle strength had soared, the power contained in the giant hammer seemed to be stronger than his. Whoosh! Jian Wuxia staggered backward. Boy, no matter how strong your skills are, in front of me, in front of absolute strength, it's futile. Star Sea Saint's voice was cold. He waved the giant hammer and intended to chase after Jian Wuxia. However, Jian Wuxia pointed at him while he was retreating. Buzz! The power of endless space-time rules swept out. Heaven-designated skill. With Jian Wuxia's current comprehension of space-time rules and the power of divine power, this move could be of great use to those below the true saint realm. However, against a genuine true saint who was at the peak of rank 1, the effect of this move was negligible. However, no matter how weak the effect was, it still made Star Sea Saint pause slightly. At the same time, Streams of black light rushed out and formed a 2-meter-long pitch-black divine sword in the blink of an eye. The pitch-black divine sword contained the power of endless reincarnation rules. As soon as it formed a line, the world around it immediately turned white. It was a vast expanse of whiteness, completely reduced to a world of ice and snow. Kill! Jian Wushuang let out a low cry. The pitch-black divine sword suddenly attacked, aiming straight at the head of Star Sea Saint. However, before the black divine sword actually appeared in front of Star Sea Saint's head, he had already broken free from the heaven-designated skill. Humph! With a cold snort, the Star Sea Saint swung the giant hammer in his hand. When the hammer hit the black divine sword, it was immediately sent flying. Even the black divine sword was trembling crazily, as if it was about to collapse. Although the power of the reincarnation sword formation is powerful, it is still performed by the sword formation itself. Without the supreme sword essence of the Blood Mountain sword, its power cannot affect the Star Sea Saint, who has reached the peak of the first level of the true saint realm. However, it doesn't need to cause too much of an impact. As long as the reincarnation sword formation is perfectly coordinated with my own swordsmanship, the Star Sea Saint won't be able to do anything to me. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned cold. As soon as he stood still, he burst out again like a bolt of lightning. Chapter 2957, Earth Boom. Clang, clang, bang, bang. The sounds of head-on collisions and clashes rang out continuously. In the center of the battlefield, Jian Wushuang had already engaged in a head-on battle with the Star Sea Saint. In terms of offensive power, the Star Sea Saint was indeed slightly stronger than Jian Wushuang. Moreover, his comprehension of the rules of the earth was also extremely high, making him extremely strong in defense, attack, and defense. His speed was also not bad, and he had almost no weaknesses. Although Jian Wushuang had perfectly combined his swordsmanship with the reincarnation sword formation to unleash the ultimate power, he still had the upper hand in a fight with Star Sea Saint. However, Star Sea Saint obviously could not do anything to Jian Wushuang in a short time. Not far from the battlefield, Shuedong King was already stunned. Star Sea Saint Lord is the acknowledged #1 expert in this territory. Star Sea Saint Lord. His divine power is extremely powerful. His comprehension of the rules of the earth is extremely high, and his absolute arts are even more powerful, too powerful. Star Sea Saint Master is really too powerful. However, Star Sea Saint Master is so powerful, but how could the Heavenly Sword Marquis fight him head-on? Shuedong King was shocked. Although he knew that Jian Wushuang was not weak, he thought that Jian Wushuang's battle strength was equal to his, or even less than his. But the result? Jian Wushuang's battle strength had completely overturned his understanding. To be able to defeat Star Sea Saint Master, who is at the peak of the first-ranked true saint realm, the Heavenly Sword Marquis must have the battle strength of the first-ranked true saint realm. Even among the first-ranked true saints, they must be extremely powerful. But he is only a divine master? Shuedong King could not help muttering. Yes, a divine master. Because Jian Wushuang was only a divine master. He was so shocked when Jian Wushuang displayed such battle strength. After all, he had never heard of a divine master who could have the battle strength of a true saint. In the center of the battlefield, the Star Sea Saint was full of surprise and shock at Jian Wushuang's strength. But soon, his eyes were filled with anger. Be careful. I admit that you are indeed a great genius. At least, I have never heard of a divine master who is more powerful than you. But no matter how powerful you are, you will die if you dare to block my way. The cold voice of the Star Sea Saint reverberated across the entire world. At this moment, the Star Sea Saint had already raised the giant hammer in his hand once again. Buzz buzz buzz. Endless earth and yellow energy, which was also the power of the laws of the earth, surged out crazily and condensed toward the giant hammer in his hand at an incomparably terrifying speed. A layer of earth and yellow earth battle armor appeared on the surface of the Star Sea Saint's body. His figure also became more towering, and his aura became more tyrannical. As for the giant hammer in his hand, it began to enlarge infinitely. Earth collapse. The Star Sea Saint's eyes flashed. Swish. It was like a flash of light. The giant hammer was raised high by the Star Sea Saint, and was still a long distance away from Jian Wushuang. However, in an instant, the giant hammer appeared in front of Jian Wushuang, giving him no time to resist or resist. The giant hammer had already smashed into his divine body. How can it be so fast? Jian Wushuang's eyes were also filled with shock. He could see that the Star Sea Saint was preparing to use his ultimate move. However, he did not expect that the Star Sea Saint's move would be so fast that he did not have time to dodge. The giant hammer smashed fiercely. The terrifying power contained in it shattered the 9 luminaries' star armor on the surface of his body at the first moment. Then, the power passed through the golden armor and entered his body, wantonly moving around inside his body. Jian Wushuang's body was also smashed by the hammer and fell to the ground. A huge pit appeared on the ground. At the bottom of the pit, the power of the giant hammer had been completely exhausted. However, Jian Wushuang let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, although my divine body has been damaged by more than 70%, it didn't directly collapse. I don't need to replenish my divine body, Jian Wushuang muttered. The collapse of his divine body was not terrible. He could use his divine power to rebuild his divine body immediately. However, he was only a divine master, but he could use his divine power to rebuild his divine body. It was obvious that he had an immortal body. There were not many divine masters who had an immortal body in the divine beginning world. This was the endless territory. Once the news spread out, the 3 Saint Realm experts who were still in the Golden Crow 9 realms and had not left would immediately determine his identity. This was not good for Jian Wushuang. His divine power had only been damaged, so he did not need to replenish it. He just needed to use his divine power to repair it. In the blink of an eye, Jian Wushuang's divine body had been completely repaired. Whoosh! He immediately rushed up again and appeared in the void above. Seeing Jian Wushuang rise up from the huge pit below unharmed, even the Star Sea Saint was a little surprised. How is this possible? He was not injured by my most powerful move. His aura was not weakened at all. The Star Sea Saint was full of disbelief. Shui Dong King, who was watching the battle from outside the battlefield, was also stunned. If it had been him, he would have died, but Jian Wushuang was not injured at all. You are indeed the #1 expert in this territory, the Star Sea Saint. You are indeed very strong, but unfortunately, although you are a little stronger than me, you can't do anything to me. It is difficult for you to even suppress me, let alone kill me. How can you compete with me for the divine earth fruit under such circumstances? Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. When the divine earth fruit ripens, he'll only have to tie you down and let Shui Dong King pick it. You can only watch. Saint Star Sea's expression changed. Indeed, judging from the strength displayed by both sides, he could not do anything to Jian Wushuang. He had even used his strongest move, but he could not hurt Jian Wushuang. How could he kill him? What Jian Wushuang said was true. As long as he was entangled, Shui Dong King would be able to pick the divine earth fruit with ease. Boy, what's your name? Star Sea Saint looked at Jian Wushuang. Heavenly Sword Marquis, Jian Wushuang said. Heavenly Sword Marquis, although you are only a divine master, your strength is indeed impressive. You are the first person below the true Saint realm to take my strongest move head-on, and you are only a divine master. However, if you think that you can easily get the divine earth fruit by entangling me, you are dreaming. Star Sea Saint smiled coldly. Chapter 2958. Forced to retreat. Heavenly Sword Marquis, don't forget that it will take some time for the divine earth fruit to fully mature. During this time, I can find a few of my immortal saints. I want to see if Shui Dong King alone can compete with my immortal saints. The cold voice of the Star Sea Saint entered Jian Wushuang's ears, causing his face to darken. Outside the battlefield, Shui Dong King also frowned. Indeed, not only was the Star Sea Saint the acknowledged #1 expert in the surrounding territory, but he also controlled a huge force. There were several immortal saints in that force alone, and it seemed that there were also peak false saints among them. If Star Sea Saint had gathered all the immortal saints before the divine earth fruit was fully ripe, The combined forces of the immortal saints would have been enough to suppress Shui Dong King. And any one of them would have been enough to pick the divine earth fruit. It was enough to pick the divine earth fruit. Star Sea Saint Master, are you really going to fight us to the death? Jian Wushuang's voice was cold. Fight to the death? Haha, Heavenly Sword Marquis, you are talented, but your strength is not as good as mine. How dare you say that you want to fight to the death with me? What right do you have to fight with me? Star Sea Saint sneered loudly. It seems that you are going to force me. In that case, don't blame me. Today you don't have to go anywhere. Just stay here completely. Jian Wushuang's voice was cold, and his killing intent was shocking. Hearing this, the Star Sea Saint's face changed. He looked at Jian Wushuang, and found that the latter did not seem to be joking at all. Does this kid really have a trump card that can make me stay here? The Star Sea Saint muttered to himself, but he quickly dismissed the idea. Humph, he is only a divine master after all. He has already shown so many tricks. There is no way he can be more powerful. He's just bluffing. He wants to scare me and force me to leave. Star Sea Saint was almost certain. However, Jian Wushuang did not waste any more words. With a thought, a golden light instantly merged into the surrounding void. In an instant the world changed color. Above the endless sky, a wonderful scroll world appeared out of thin air. The world of the painting scroll was extremely real. There were mountains, rivers, and even 9 huge continents in the world. What is this? The Star Sea Saint frowned, but he suddenly widened his eyes. He saw a supreme power slowly condensing in the beautiful world of the painting scroll above him. This power was astonishingly strong, but in the end, it condensed into a hand seal. The hand seal was enormous and boundless, as if it covered a great world. After the boundless hand seal was formed, it slowly broke out of the scroll world and slowly descended. The mountain river map was the first move of the 3 strongest moves of the 9-region seal, the Divine Emperor seal. This move had always been one of Jian Wushuang's killing moves. However, this move not only consumed a lot of divine power and mind power, but also needed a period of time to develop. In an ordinary battle, there was rarely a chance to use a killing move of this level. However, it was obvious that neither he nor the Star Sea Saint could defeat the other. Under such circumstances, the two of them naturally had to compete with each other in their own killer moves. The move of the Divine Emperor Seal, which Jian Wushuang used with his current divine power, was extremely powerful. Rumble, the giant handprint slowly descended, and the heaven and earth void collapsed under the pressure of the handprint. The Star Sea Saint was at the bottom of the giant handprint. He was a true saint at the peak of rank 1. At this moment, there was a trace of fear and panic in his eyes. Previously, he did not care about Jian Wushuang's trump cards or skills, because they could not threaten him. But now, the appearance of the giant handprint scared him. Block it! The Star Sea Saint let out a low shout, and a trace of madness surged in his eyes. The endless power of the laws of the earth crazily condensed in front of him to form layers of barriers, and his huge hammer, that weighed hundreds of millions of pounds, was held in both hands at the same time. With an ear-piercing sound, the huge hammer that contained a terrifying power suddenly struck toward the huge hand seal. The two finally collided head-on. Bang! With a low rumble, the divine power of the rules of the earth spread out. The giant handprint stayed in the air for a moment, then continued to crush down. Boom! The huge swamp on the ground completely caved in. The entire swamp disappeared, but because Jian Wushuang could control his own power, the giant handprint did not touch the temple in the middle of the swamp, so it would not hurt the divine earth fruit. The world soon calmed down. Whoosh! A figure suddenly flew up. This figure was the Star Sea Saint. But at this moment, he no longer looked high and mighty. Instead, he was in a sorry state. His robe was torn, his hair was messy, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. His aura was also much weaker than before. He stood in the void and stared at Jian Wushuang with his cold eyes. Boy, I underestimated you. I didn't expect you to have such a killer move in your hands. Unfortunately, your move couldn't even defeat my divine body directly. You don't even qualify me to use my immortal body to rebuild my divine body. How can you leave me here? Saint Star Sea sneered. Indeed, Jian Wushuang's killer move was very powerful and terrifying. But do not forget, he was a true saint, and he had mastered the immortal body. With the immortal body, even a second-rank true saint who was stronger than him would find it extremely difficult to kill him. However, Jian Wushuang's killer move could not even break his divine body. How could he kill him? It's too early for you to be happy. Jian Wushuang shot a cold glance at Star Sea Saint, and the divine power in his body surged again. Boom! A stronger power began to gather in the sky. There's more! Star Sea Saint was shocked. He stared at the scroll world, and felt the shocking power coming from it. No, this power is even more powerful and terrifying than the hand seal just now. The hand seal just now has already shattered my divine body a lot, and I almost collapsed directly. Now the power he has condensed is even stronger than the hand seal just now, and it can definitely make my divine body collapse directly. Although I can rely on my immortal body to be sufficient, with my ability, I can only use it 4 times at most. But who knows how many times this kid can use such a killer move? The Star Sea Saint thought quickly, and came up with an idea. The divine earth fruit is gone. I can think of ways to fight for it in the future, but I only have 1 life. Let's go. The Star Sea Saint made a prompt decision. He directly turned around and rushed toward the distant void at the fastest speed. Chapter 2959. Maturity. Did he escape? Seeing the Star Sea Saint completely disappear from his sight, a strange smile appeared on Jian Wushuang's face. Buzz! The heaven and earth shook, and the pressure gathered at the top at a terrifying speed instantly disappeared. Brother Heavenly Sword Marquis, what are you? Shuedong King looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. I'm just bluffing. Jian Wushuang smiled. Bluffing? Shuedong King was stunned, but he immediately understood. Indeed, Jian Wushuang was bluffing. He was very powerful, and had many trump cards. However, unless he used the life-level pressure, he had no means to completely kill a true saint at the peak of rank 1. As for the more powerful power that rose from the scroll world in the sky, it was indeed the second seal of the strongest 3 seals of the 9-region seal. However, he could not completely use this seal. He was just putting on an act, and using some starting moves to condense such powerful power. However, because of the power of the first move, and the many heaven-defying moves that Jian Wushuang had shown, Star Sea Saint believed that he could really use the second seal. Therefore the Star Sea Saint fled. He fled in fear. Star Sea Saint is indeed powerful. I can only fight him head-on, with all my trump cards. It's impossible for me to kill him. It's already good enough that I can scare him and scare him away. If nothing goes wrong, he won't dare to come for the divine earth fruit again out of fear of me, Jian Wushuang said. It would not take long for the divine earth fruit to ripen. Before it ripens, Star Sea Saint would not be able to ask other powerful true saints to help him. He was completely stunned by Jian Wushuang, and was afraid that he would not dare to come again. Therefore, the divine earth fruit had naturally become his and Shuedong King's possession. Let's wait here. In a few days, the divine earth fruit will be fully ripe, Jian Wushuang said. Okay. Shuedong King nodded heavily, but he gave Jian Wushuang a strange look. Brother Heavenly Sword Marquis, your strength is really terrifying. Shuedong King was extremely shocked. He had witnessed the battle between Jian Wushuang and the Star Sea Saint from the beginning to the end. He had thought that Jian Wushuang's battle strength should be comparable to his. They had fought equally before. But who would have thought that Jian Wushuang would be so heaven-defying? A divine master had scared the Star Sea Saint, who had reached the peak of rank 1 true saint, into fleeing in panic. It was incredible. Let's go down. Jian Wushuang did not explain much, and returned to the palace with Shuedong King. In the bamboo forest on the floating continent, in the center of the Star Sea, since the Saint Master has gone to the Dark Shout realm, it should be easy for him to get the divine earth fruit. He will be overjoyed, and will reward you handsomely. But what will he reward you with? The graceful woman who had come to inform the Star Sea Saint was waiting there, but her heart was filled with anticipation. The Star Sea Saint was publicly acknowledged as the #1 expert in this territory, and he had the most resources in his hands. The things he bestowed, Even the immortal saint would be extremely moved. Right at this moment, Xiao, a stream of light shot over from the distance, and in the blink of an eye, it had appeared in front of the graceful woman. Saint Master. The graceful woman immediately bowed, but when she saw the appearance of the Star Sea Saint, the smile on her face could not help but stiffen. At this moment, the Star Sea Saint was not only in a sorry state, but his face was also extremely gloomy. The aura on his body was also extremely gloomy and cold. He did not look like he had any good news at all. Saint Master, that divine earth fruit. The graceful woman had just opened her mouth. Get lost. Don't bring me the divine earth fruit again. The Star Sea Saint shouted angrily. Yes, yes. The graceful woman nodded in fear, and immediately turned around to leave. The moment she turned around, a trace of coldness flashed in the graceful woman's eyes. But more than that, she was shocked. She knew that since the Star Sea Saint was so angry, it was obvious that he did not get the divine earth fruit. But as far as she knew, the people who occupied the Earth God Kingdom were only Shuedong King and a supreme divine master. How could the Star Sea Saint not get the divine earth fruit from them? Since the Saint Master didn't get the divine earth fruit, I didn't get the reward. This trip was in vain, and I got myself into trouble. The graceful woman's face was cold, and she soon left the bamboo forest. The Star Sea Saint returned to the bamboo house. When he sat down cross-legged on the bamboo bed, his face looked better. Heavenly Sword Marquis, you're unknown. Before this battle, I didn't know that you existed, and I didn't know that you had incredible talent. You're just a divine master, but you can't do anything to me. You even made me feel like my life was in danger when you used your last killing move. You're very powerful. It's not unfair that I lost to you in this battle. Moreover, I believe that with your power, you will grow to a higher level before long. You might even become famous in the absolute beginning divine realm. Although the divine earth fruit fell into your hands, I still admire you. The Star Sea Saint's eyes sparkled. He slowly closed his eyes, and the anger in his body gradually subsided. He was an ascetic, and his strength had come from his hard work and cultivation over the years. A treasure like the divine earth fruit was indeed very useful to him, and he was eager to get it. But if he could not get it, he would not force it. At most, it would be a pity. Time slowly passed. Soon a month had passed. In the palace, Jian Wuxia and Shuedong King were still eating and drinking. Suddenly, buzz! A strange aura directly erupted from the deepest part of the underground. At the same time, a large amount of hazy earthen yellow power formed a halo and swept out in all directions. It was not a big movement, but it was quite strange. Has it finally matured? Jian Wuxia and Shuedong King immediately stood up with surprise in their eyes. They soon came to the depths of the underground, came to the muddy pool, and saw the divine earth fruit again. The divine earth fruit had clearly completed its final transformation. The earthy yellow halo around its body was very thick, and the fragrance it emitted was even more tempting. Chapter 2960. Lord Tianxua. It looks like it has matured. Brother, go and pick it, Shuedong King said. Okay. Jian Wuxia nodded. He jumped into the pool and picked the divine earth fruit. Then he returned to Shuedong King. Shuedong King, we both found the divine earth fruit at the same time, so we each have half of it. But now, although we know the name of the divine earth fruit from the Star Sea Saint, we don't know its function and value, Jian Wuxia said with a frown. Haha, that's easy. Brother Heavenly Marquis, listen to me. Let's go back to the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance first. When we get there, it will be easy to distribute, Shuedong King said with a smile. Okay. Jian Wuxia nodded. Jian Wuxia and Shuedong King returned to the 385th nest of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Elder Qiao. Shuedong King walked to the counter and stood in front of the thin elder in a Taoist robe. Let's hand in the mission. Shuedong King took out a mission list and a mirror image token. This mirror image token was deliberately recorded by the Shuedong King. During the process of completing the mission, some experts of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance would take the corpse of the other party, or prove the other party's identity, so that they could kill the person themselves. But there were also some who found it troublesome, It was even easier to prove this by directly opening the mirror record and recording the whole process with the mirror image. The Shuedong king recorded the process with the mirror token. The elder took the mirror token and skimmed through it. The next moment, he looked at Jian Wushuang with astonishment. That's right. Elder Qiu nodded at Jian Wushuang and took out an interspatial ring. This is your mission reward. You can distribute it yourselves. After taking it, Shuedong king left the counter. Shuedong king, if you and I carry out missions together in the future, it's better not to record it with the mirror token. Jian Wushuang touched his nose and said, he did not want too many people to know his strength. Haha, I understand. Shuedong king immediately nodded. Didn't you say that you know how to distribute the divine earth fruit when you arrived at the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's nest? Jian Wushuang asked, puzzled. Don't worry, come with me. Shuedong king smiled mysteriously and then led Jian Wushuang to a corner of the nest. Brother Heavenly Marquis, you just joined the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance and became an ordinary member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance not long ago. I'm afraid you don't know your rights as an ordinary member, right? Shuedong king said as they walked. No, I don't, Jian Wushuang answered. Let me tell you, the members of the Heaven-Slaying Alliance have their own rights, whether they are ordinary members, Earth-level members, Heaven-level members, or even Emperor-level members. There are two kinds of rights. The first is the level of missions that can be accepted. Shuedong king explained. For example, ordinary members can only accept ordinary missions, but they are not qualified to accept higher-level Earth-level missions. On the contrary, Earth-level members can not only accept Earth-level missions, but also accept ordinary missions. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He knew this. And the second authority is the Treasure Pavilion, Shuedong king said. Treasure Pavilion? Jian Wushuang's expression changed. There is a Treasure Pavilion in the Heaven-Cleaving Union, and it is very unique. All members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance can enter the Treasure Pavilion. However, the treasures in the Treasure Pavilion are divided into different levels. Ordinary members can only exchange for treasures with the authority of ordinary members. As for higher-level treasures, no matter how much you pay, you can't get them, Shuedong king said. Is that so? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and said, the Treasure Pavilion. We're here. Shuedong king stopped. Jian Wushuang was stunned, but he looked around blankly. He had come to a vast pavilion, but the key point was that it was a vast open space with no material objects around it. Was this the Treasure Pavilion of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? Brother Heavenly Marquis, look. Shuedong king pointed forward. Jian Wushuang immediately followed Shuedong king's direction and was stunned. In the void in front of him, some faint golden light began to condense. A moment later, it condensed into a golden light shadow. This golden light shadow was the size of a normal human, but its exact appearance could not be seen. Welcome to the Treasure Pavilion. I am the treasure spirit of the Treasure Pavilion. You can call me Lord Tianshou, the golden light shadow said in a normal human voice. Treasure spirit? Jian Wushuang frowned. Brother, you should be familiar with the treasure spirit. However, this Lord Tianshou in front of us is extraordinary, Shuedong king said softly. How is he extraordinary? Jian Wushuang asked. It's simple. I've heard that the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance only has one treasure pavilion and one weapon spirit in the divine beginning world, Shuedong king said in a deep voice. What? Jian Wushuang was shocked. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance only had one treasure pavilion and one weapon spirit? Could it be that they were seeing the only weapon spirit? How could this be possible? The treasure pavilion of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance can't be in our current territory, Jian Wushuang said directly. Of course not. Shuedong king smiled. Let me tell you this. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance indeed only has one treasure pavilion and one weapon spirit. However, this weapon spirit can have tens of thousands of clones and can be found in countless secret caves of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance in the divine beginning world. As long as it's in one of the secret caves of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, we members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance can have a face-to-face conversation with it. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang was shocked. An artifact spirit had tens of thousands of incarnations, and could be found in all the nests in the beginning divine world? Since we can talk to the artifact spirit directly, does that mean we can talk to it directly about what we want? Jian Wushuang asked. Yes. Shui Dongqing nodded. In front of Sir Tianshou, you can tell him what you want or what kind of things you want. Sir Tianshou will choose for you and show you the information of the treasures that meet your requirements and are within your jurisdiction. If you find the right one, you will pay the price. Then you can wait here. The experts of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance will naturally send the items to you. In addition, the treasure pavilion of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance can be used to exchange for treasures. Not only can you use sacred elixirs to buy some things, but you can also exchange your treasures for holy treasures. No matter what treasure it is, Lord Tianshua can immediately recognize its origin and determine its value. Chapter 2961. A huge sum of money. Take a look. With that, Shui Dongqing walked forward. Lord Tianshou, we have obtained a treasure. We would like you to determine its value, Shui Dongqing said. Sure. The golden light shadow nodded. Brother Heavenly Maskies, take out the divine earth fruit, Shui Dongqing said. Jian Wushuang took out the divine earth fruit without hesitation. The golden light shadow glanced at the divine earth fruit and already had the result. The divine earth fruit is very useful for cultivators who are comprehending the earth rules, especially those below the Master of Laws. It is enough to make many immortal saints who are comprehending the laws fight for it. Even some top immortal saints would covet it. This treasure is very valuable and very rare. You can choose to keep it or exchange it for me. But if you choose to keep it, you have to pay a fee of 500,000 sacred elixirs. The golden light shadow said. Appraisal fee? 500,000 sacred elixirs? Jian Wushuang was stunned. Brother Heavenly Marquis, you need to pay an appraisal fee to ask Lord Tianshou to appraise a treasure in the treasure pavilion. The higher the value of the treasure, the higher the appraisal fee. However, if you choose to exchange this treasure for Lord Tianshou will help you appraise it for free, said Shui Dongqing. Is that so? Jian Wushuang understood. Sir Tianshou, the divine earth fruit is of no use to us, so I'll exchange it for you directly. But how many saint elixirs can I exchange for this treasure? Shui Dongqing asked. Sir Tianshou pondered for a moment and then said, 100 million. 100 million. Hearing this number, Jian Wushuang and Shui Dongqing were stunned. They looked at each other with a trace of shock in their eyes. 100 million? 100 million sacred elixirs? They had guessed that the divine earth fruit was very valuable, otherwise, the Star Sea Saint would not have come to fight for it. However, they estimated that the divine earth fruit was only worth about 20 to 30 million sacred elixirs. It was already very good that it was worth more than 30 million sacred elixirs. However, it was obvious that they had underestimated the value of the divine earth fruit. This earth god kingdom was an excellent treasure used to comprehend the laws of the earth. Many true saint experts who were proficient in the laws of the earth and had great strength coveted this treasure. How could its value be ordinary? 100 million sacred pills. This is because we are only ordinary members, right? Shui Dongwang said. Yes. Lord Tianshua directly nodded. According to the rules of the treasure pavilion of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, the higher the level of the members, the more authority they have. Whether you buy it in the treasure pavilion, there are certain benefits. For example, if you buy the same treasure, ordinary members must pay 100% of the sacred elixirs, but Earth-level members only need to pay 90%, and Heaven-level members only need to pay 80%, and so on. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Now he finally knew the benefits of being a high-level member. It's true that you can only get 100 million sacred elixirs if you exchange the divine earth fruit for me with your authority as an ordinary member. But if you become an earth-level member in the future and exchange the divine earth fruit for me, you can get 10 million more sacred elixirs. As for your choice, it's up to you, Lord Tianshua said. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang and Shui Dongqing immediately began to discuss. Shui Dongqing, what do you think? Jian Wushuang asked. You've seen the 3-star mission this time. With my strength, It will be a bit stressful to complete 3-star missions alone. I'm afraid it will take some time for me to successfully become an Earth-level member. But if I can get this sacred elixir, I can exchange it for a lot of good things. Then my strength will improve a lot, and the speed of completing the mission will be faster. So, I hope to exchange for this divine earth fruit now. What about you? Shuedong King looked over. I think so too. Jian Wushuang smiled. Even if they waited until the Earth-level members went to exchange, they would only get 10 million more sacred elixirs. If they split the money, they would each get 5 million more sacred elixirs. 5 million sacred elixirs were not as important as 100 million sacred elixirs. Of course, they did not need to wait so long. Sir Tianshou, we have decided to exchange for the divine earth fruit now, Jian Wushuang said. Okay. Sir Tianshou nodded slightly. With a flip of his hand, the divine earth fruit disappeared from his hand. Now you have 100 million sacred elixirs. If you divide the 100 million sacred elixirs equally, each of you will get 50 million sacred elixirs. You can choose to buy treasures from me, or get ready-made sacred elixirs. Within 10 days, someone will deliver the sacred elixirs to you. Let's take a look at the treasures first, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. What a joke. The treasure pavilion of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was the only one in the divine beginning world. How vast was the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? It was not surprising that 99% of the treasures in the divine beginning world should be available in the treasure pavilion, as long as there were some. However, one needed a certain level of authority to exchange for them. Although they were only ordinary members, there were still some extraordinary items that ordinary members could exchange for. You can tell me what kind of treasures you want. Lord Tianshou's tone was cold and emotionless. Brother Tianhou, this is your first time in the treasure pavilion. You can go first, said Shuedong King. Jian Wushuang did not stand on ceremony. After pondering for a moment, he said directly, Lord Tianshou, I first need some treasures that can help me accumulate divine power. Treasures that can accumulate divine power? You mean treasures that can refine and help you reach the highest level of divine power in a short time? Sir Tianshou asked. Yes, I haven't cultivated for a long time. In the past, I relied on absorbing the pure power of the sacred elixir to increase my divine power. But now that I'm at a higher level, I need more and more divine power. Absorbing the sacred elixir alone costs a lot of sacred elixirs, and the effect is even weaker, Jian Wushuang said. You've been absorbing the sacred elixir to increase your divine power? Lord Tianshou looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. Brother Heavenly Marquis, Shuedong King was also quite surprised. Why is it strange? Jian Wushuang asked curiously. Of course it's strange, Shuedong King said directly. Brother Heavenly Marquis, first of all, you should know that the sacred elixir is mainly used as a currency in the beginning divine world. Secondly, it's used to absorb and refine. Even if it's really used to absorb and refine divine power into your own, the process is very complicated and long. Under normal circumstances, very few people do this. Even if they do this, many people are helpless. But you've been absorbing and refining the power of the sacred elixir to increase your divine power. This is a waste. Chapter 2962. Divine Power Fruit a Waste? Jian Wushuang was stunned. It is indeed a waste, Lord Tianshou said. If you need to accumulate and improve your divine power, there are divine power fruits in my treasure pavilion that are specially used to improve your divine power. These divine power fruits are available at all levels and are tailored to the needs of different levels. You are only a divine master now, so ordinary divine power fruits should be enough for you. How much divine power does an ordinary divine power fruit contain? Jian Wushuang asked. One is worth 100,000 sacred elixirs, and it's even purer. As for the price, I can exchange 10,000 sacred elixirs for an ordinary divine power fruit, Lord Tianshou said. One is worth 100,000 sacred elixirs, and the price is only 10,000 sacred elixirs? Jian Wushuang was stunned. He finally understood that Lord Tianshou and Shuedong King would say that he had wasted it. It was more than a waste, it was a waste of a treasure. Damn! I've absorbed so many saint elixirs. If I exchange them all for divine power fruits. Jian Wushuang looked strange, but then he said seriously, Lord Tianshou, an ordinary divine power fruit is worth 100,000 saint elixirs. What about a higher level one? A higher level one has an earth-level divine power fruit. It's more than enough for an ordinary false saint or a weaker true saint. As for its effect, one is worth about 3 million sacred elixirs. It's worth 100,000 sacred elixirs, Sir Tianshua said. Jian Wushuang's heart trembled, but he was pleasantly surprised. He was surprised that he had been too wasteful. He was happy with the effect of the earth-level divine power fruit. One fruit was equivalent to absorbing 3 million sacred elixirs. How much divine power was that? I'm not too far away from the peak of the great divine master. According to what I thought before, I should be able to break through after absorbing, at most 20 million sacred elixirs. But now this divine power fruit. Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with a strange light. He immediately said, Lord Tianshou, give me 20 earth-grade divine power fruits first. 20. Sir Tianshua raised his eyebrows. Shuedong King looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise and said, Brother Heavenly Marquis, one earth-grade divine power fruit is equivalent to absorbing 3 million sacred elixirs. 20 is the divine power of 60 million sacred elixirs. Why do you need so many? I have my uses. Jian Wushuang did not explain much. Earth-grade divine power fruit, 100,000 sacred elixirs per fruit. 20 would be 2 million sacred elixirs. You still have 48 million sacred elixirs left, Lord Tianshua said. Lord Tianshua, I need a special sword formation. I don't know if you have it, Jian Wushuang said. Sword formation? What sword formation? Lord Tianshua looked over. The reincarnation sword formation was created by an expert named Sword Master Tongxin. Sword Master Tongxin was almost invincible among the immortal saints when he was alive. He created a total of 12 reincarnation sword formations. Jian Wushuang explained the information of the reincarnation sword formation in detail. The samsara sword formation had been of great help to him since he got it. He had comprehended the space-time and reincarnation rules at the same time. In terms of the space-time rules, the swordsmanship he created was focused on space-time. In terms of the reincarnation rules, he relied on the samsara sword formation to perfectly displaying his comprehension of the reincarnation rules. However, he had only obtained the first 4 layers of the samsara sword formation. He could now use the 4th layer of the ice and snow world, and he could also use its strongest power. At this time, of course, he was eager to get more powerful sword formations. Wait a moment. Lord Tianshou immediately began to investigate. There was nothing he could do. There were too many treasures in the treasure pavilion. Take the samsara sword formation for example. There were hundreds of sword formations in the treasure pavilion that were also named after samsara. Even if Lord Tianshou was the treasure spirit of the treasure pavilion, he had to check carefully. A moment later, he looked at Jian Wushuang again. I found it. The reincarnation sword formation you asked for does exist in the treasure pavilion, and it has a complete 12 sword formations. Among the 12 sword formations, the first 4 require the permission of an ordinary member, but the middle 4 require the permission of an earth-level member. As for the strongest sword formation, the last 4 require the permission of a heaven-level member. Jian Wushuang was stunned. He already had the first 4 levels of the 12 samsara sword formations, so he naturally needed the middle 4 levels. However, he did not expect the middle 4 levels to have such high authority. They needed the earth level, and the last 4 levels needed the authority of a heaven-level member. However, Jian Wushuang thought about it carefully and could understand. Sword Master Tongxin was, after all, an almost invincible immortal saint. His strength was extremely terrifying, and the samsara sword formation he created was the basis of his fame. It was extremely powerful, which could be seen from the first 4 levels alone. It was normal for such a powerful sword formation to have a higher exchange authority. Lord Tianshua, how many sacred elixirs do you need to exchange for the middle 4 levels of the samsara sword formation? Jian Wushuang asked. 15 million. Lord Tianshua said. Jian Wushuang nodded secretly. 1,500 sacred elixirs were not too expensive to exchange for the middle 4 levels of the Samsara sword formation. Since I can't exchange for the medium 4 sword formation now, forget it. Anyway, with my current strength, it shouldn't be difficult for me to become an Earth-level member. I can keep these sacred lands for now. When I become an Earth-level member in the future, I can exchange for them. Jian Wushuang smiled. However, although I can't exchange for the sword formation, I can exchange for the magic weapons that drive the sword formation. Previously, Jian Wushuang had used 18 Netherblood Divine Swords to drive the sword formation. Each of the 18 Netherblood Divine Swords was a top-tier heavenly treasure, and their power was extraordinary. However, as Jian Wushuang's strength continued to increase, it was difficult for him to satisfy his needs with just the top-tier heavenly treasures. The most important thing was that he had received a huge sum of 50 million sacred elixirs in one go, which made him very confident. In order to increase the power of the reincarnation sword formation, he really wanted to exchange the 18 Netherblood Divine Swords again. Sir Tianshou, I need a set of standard divine weapons of the Holy Treasure level, all of which are divine swords. The size should be based on the Netherblood Divine Sword in my hand. It would be even better if I have a divine weapon of the Holy Treasure level. Jian Wushuang took out Netherblood Divine Sword. I don't have a divine weapon of the Holy Treasure level in my treasure pavilion, but I can find a replacement for it. As for the price, it's 200,000 for an ordinary 3rd-grade divine weapon, 600,000 for an advanced 3rd-grade divine weapon, and 1,500,000 for a superior 3rd-grade divine weapon. You can choose one yourself, Sir Tianshou said. Of course, Jian Wushuang would prefer a superior 3rd-grade standard magic weapon of 1.5 million. However, he needed a total of 18 such standard magic weapons. If he had 1.5 million each, it would add up to 27 million sacred elixirs. Chapter 2963. Supreme Divine Master expensive, too expensive. Jian Wushuang secretly praised. However, he also knew that a standard magic weapon of the 3rd-grade superior Holy Treasure level would be much more powerful than an ordinary standard magic weapon of the 3rd-grade Holy Treasure level. The Divine Earth Fruit has given me 50 million sacred elixirs at one go. In addition to the reward I got from completing the 3-star mission with the Shuedong King, and the reward I got after killing the 3 Saint Shadows, I have a lot of sacred elixirs. Even if I have to leave 15 million sacred elixirs for the middle 4 forms of the reincarnation sword formation, I still have a lot left. If you want to buy the best. Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up, and he immediately looked at the golden light figure in front of him. Sir Tianshou, I've decided to buy a standard magic weapon of the 3rd-grade superior Holy Treasure level, with 1,500,000 sacred elixirs each. I want 18 of them. 18 of them means 27 million sacred elixirs. In addition to the 2 million you used to buy the Divine Power Fruit, you still have 21 million sacred elixirs, Sir Tianshou said. I also need some treasures that are useful for comprehending the rules of space-time and reincarnation, which can help me to comprehend them, Jian Wushuang said. He already had 3 heaven-sealing maps, which had been very helpful to him in comprehending the rules. However, the heaven-sealing maps only allowed him to use the profound mysteries of heaven and earth to deduce and comprehend faster. However, there were some special treasures in heaven and earth that consumed energy, which was very helpful in comprehending the rules. The Divine Earth Fruit, for example, belonged to such a treasure, but it was obviously of a higher level. Lord Tianshua quickly organized an inventory and handed it to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang carefully browsed through it and selected a few treasures. In this way, he spent another 4 million sacred elixirs, leaving only 17 million sacred elixirs. He planned to keep the 17 million sacred elixirs until he became an Earth-level member. You can wait in this nest for a while. The things you want and the remaining sacred elixirs will be delivered to you in 10 days, Lord Tianshou said. I understand. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly, looking forward to it. Next, it was time for Shuedong King to choose the treasures. Shuedong King could also get 50 million sacred elixirs, so he had to make full use of them. In the end, he also chose several treasures and used 2 secret skills, spending nearly 40 million sacred elixirs. It could be said that they had squandered a lot of their sacred elixirs. After selecting the sacred elixirs, they waited quietly in the nest. Sure enough, on the 5th day, someone delivered the things they had bought to them. Then, they went to find a place to cultivate in seclusion. In the secret chamber, Jian Wushuang sat quietly with his legs crossed. In front of him were purple fruits that emitted a delicate fragrance. The fruit was not big, only the size of an infant's fist. However, it contained a lot of pure divine power. Is this the divine power fruit? Looking at the purple fruits in front of him, Jian Wushuang's eyes shone with a strange light. After hesitating for a long time, he finally reached out his hand, grabbed one of the divine power fruits and swallowed it. The divine power fruit melted as soon as it entered Jian Wushuang's stomach and turned into a vast amount of pure divine power that flowed in his body. There was too much divine power, and it was too vast. Indeed, just as Lord Tianshou said, an earth-level divine power fruit has a vast amount of pure divine power. Consuming one fruit is equivalent to absorbing 3 million sacred elixirs. Jian Wushuang's eyes sparkled with surprise. He immediately began to refine the divine power fruit. In less than an hour, the pure power contained in the divine power fruit had been completely absorbed by him. He could clearly sense that the divine power in his body had increased by a level compared to before. At this speed, I'm afraid that I won't need more than a few divine power fruits before the accumulation of divine power in my body reaches its peak. Jian Wushuang was a little excited and immediately began to consume the remaining divine power fruits. 125. Jian Wushuang had spent 2 million sacred elixirs to exchange for 20 divine power fruits from Lord Tianshou. However, in reality, he did not need 20 divine power fruits at all. Just by consuming the 7th divine power fruit, Jian Wushuang's divine power had exceeded his limit, and he had broken through the bottleneck. Yes, Jian Wushuang had broken through. He had broken through from an advanced divine master to a peak divine master. This step was only a small realm, but it still greatly improved Jian Wushuang's strength. Jian Wushuang stood proudly on a vast sea, and in front of him was a small island that was only a few hundred miles in size. Looking at the island, Jian Wushuang's body began to surge with divine power. He did not use any swordsmanship or any techniques. He just formed a palm with one hand and clapped it forward. The palm contained divine power that had reached the level of a peak great divine master. Boom! The sky and earth changed color. The palm was infinitely enlarged and covered the entire island. As the palm descended, the small island in the middle of the sea, which was only a few hundred miles wide, was crushed. The earth trembled and countless waves were swept up crazily. In the blink of an eye, the island had disappeared. Such power! Jian Wushuang's eyes were shining. He did not use any means at all. He just relied on divine power to easily crush the island in front of him. This was impossible before he made the breakthrough. In terms of the strength of my divine power, I am now 6 or 7 times stronger than an advanced great divine master. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands. Although the increase of 6 or 7 times might not necessarily mean that Jian Wushuang's overall strength had also increased by 6 or 7 times, his battle strength had greatly increased. At this moment, Jian Wushuang moved his mind. Swish, 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 swish. Streaks of gray streamers rushed out. These gray streamers shuttled rapidly in the void. It was impossible to see the specific trajectory of their convergence with the naked eye. However, under Jian Wushuang's control, in just a moment, the streaks of gray streamers floated in front of him and stopped. These streams of gray light were actually gray magic swords. Each of these gray magic swords was only about 2 feet long. The edges of the swords were very thin, but they contained the power of reincarnation and the aura of a treasure. They were extremely powerful. There was a faint gray airflow around the swords. It felt like a gray fog. Chapter 2964. Strength skyrocketed. This gray magic sword was called the Star Luo sword. It was a third-grade superior holy treasure-grade magic weapon that Jian Wushuang had exchanged for 1.5 million sacred elixirs from Lord Tianshou. A total of 18 Star Luo swords floated in front of Jian Wushuang. In order to control 18 superior holy treasures at the same time, one had to have a very strong soul. Secondly, controlling 18 third-grade superior holy treasures and controlling 18 superior holy treasures were two completely different things in terms of strength consumption. Even if an ordinary immortal saint wanted to control 18 superior third-grade holy treasures at the same time, his divine power would be exhausted in 2 or 3 moves. Although Jian Wushuang was only a divine master, his divine power was too vast. It was far beyond what the immortal saint could compare with. Controlling 18 superior third-grade holy treasures at the same time did not pose too much pressure to him. It's also the 4th sword formation of the Samsara sword formation. I'd like to see the difference between using 18 third-grade superior holy treasures and 18 superior heavenly treasures. With a hint of curiosity, Jian Wushuang immediately controlled the 18 Star Luo swords in front of him and combined them at the fastest speed. The 18 Star Luo swords combined to form a Cyan Divine Sword that was less than 2 meters long. The Cyan Divine Sword was filled with the power of the law of reincarnation. Even before it flew out, its terrifying aura alone was enough to make an ordinary immortal saint despair. Go! Jian Wushuang pointed at it from afar. The Cyan Divine Sword turned into a cyan arc light and instantly rushed out. Whoosh! The arc light traveled over 10,000 meters and mercilessly lifted up 2 huge waves wherever it passed. However, the cyan arc light was unstoppable and destroyed everything in front of it. The ear-piercing sound of the void-piercing explosion was even louder. In the end, the green arc light did not directly hit the material body. It only penetrated the void. The specific power had not been fully displayed, but Jian Wushuang already had a vague idea of what it was. If my senses are correct, using 18 superior third-grade holy treasures to perform a move of the Samsara sword formation, Ice and Snow World, is about 10 times more powerful than using superior heavenly treasures previously. Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with a strange luster. More than 10 times. Just because he changed his magic weapon. The power is too strong. Jian Wushuang was extremely excited. When I fought with the Star Sea Saint, I used all my trump cards and fully performed the Samsara sword formation. However, the Samsara sword formation must be a sword formation, and it must be performed by my own standard magic weapon. I guided the supreme sword essence of the Blood Mountain sword, but I couldn't increase the power of the Samsara sword formation, so the power of the Samsara sword formation couldn't threaten the Star Sea Saint. But it's different now. With these 18 Star Luo swords, the power of the 4th level of the reincarnation sword formation will increase by more than 10 times. It won't be weaker than the strongest swordsmanship I use when I fully guide the sword essence. In other words, I should be able to fight Star Sea Saint head-on with this reincarnation sword formation alone. Once I guide the sword essence to fight Star Sea Saint head-on, Star Sea Saint will definitely be no match for me. And this is before my breakthrough. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists tightly. Before his breakthrough, he was confident that he could defeat the Star Sea Saint with the help of the sword formation, formed by the 18 Star Luo swords combined with his swordsmanship. However, now that he had reached the peak Great Divine Master level, and his overall strength had improved a lot, his battle strength should have far surpassed the Star Sea Saint. I've made a breakthrough in my realm and tested the power of the Star Luo sword. My next target is the 5th sword formation of the Samsara sword formation. To get this heavy sword formation, I must first become an Earth-level member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Jian Wushuang muttered. The authority of an Earth-level member was much higher than that of an ordinary member. But to become an Earth-level member, one must first have a certain level of strength. Secondly, one must complete 3 ordinary level 3-star missions alone. Jian Wushuang knew this, so he immediately went to the secret nest number 385. The secret nest was still quite deserted, and few people came here on weekdays. As for Shui Dong King, who had been staying with Jian Wushuang all this time, After he exchanged the sacred elixir for treasures from Lord Tianshou, he went into seclusion and never came out, so Jian Wushuang naturally would not disturb him. Moreover, Jian Wushuang was doing a promotion mission, which required him to complete alone. It was useless even with Shuedong King. Jian Wushuang went directly to the counter. Elder Qiu, give me a list of tasks, Jian Wushuang said. Elder Qiu raised his head and glanced at Jian Wushuang, then threw him a token. After taking the token, Jian Wushuang glanced at it briefly, then slowly shook his head. There were not many missions recorded in the token. There were only 2 3-star missions. Although they were 3-star missions, they did not put any pressure on Jian Wushuang at the moment. Moreover, the rewards for these 2 missions were average. It did not interest Jian Wushuang at all. Elder Qiu, can you give me a more detailed list of missions, preferably 3-star missions or above? It doesn't matter if they are not from this territory, Jian Wushuang said. There are indeed only 2 3-star missions around this nest. However, there are many 3-star missions outside this territory. You can see for yourself. Elder Qiu took out a brand new token and handed it to Jian Wushuang. There were many missions recorded on this token. There were more than 200 ordinary 3-star missions. There were enough missions for Jian Wushuang to select. The only regret was that these 3-star missions were far away from the nest. Jian Wushuang had to go through the wormhole inside the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance to get there. Moreover, the wormhole was not open for free. He had to pay a big price for it. These missions. Jian Wushuang carefully browsed through the missions in the token and soon locked onto 3 of them. Just these 3 missions, Jian Wushuang said and returned the token to Elder Qiu. At the same time, he explained the 3 3-star missions he had taken. One person taking 3 missions at the same time. And they are all 3-star missions? Marquis Jian, what do you want to do? Elder Qiu asked in a deep voice. Nothing. I just think it's troublesome, so I want to complete all 3 promotion missions at the same time, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. Promotion mission? You mean you want to complete all 3 missions alone? Elder Qiu immediately looked over. Chapter 2965, Promotion Mission Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded. After hearing Jian Wushuang's answer, Elder Qiu's expression became strange. Elder Qiu was an immortal saint himself. He could tell at a glance that Jian Wushuang was only a divine master. As for the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, even if it was an ordinary 3-star mission, it had to be at least a top-notch false saint. Could it be that this divine master had the battle strength of a first-rate false saint? Of course, Elder Qiu had some doubts in his heart. But what he did not know was that Jian Wushuang's battle strength was far more than that of a false saint. Although he was puzzled, Elder Qiu would not ask too much. He just followed the normal procedure and said, Heavenly Sword Marquis, there's something you have to remember. It's one thing to complete the promotion mission alone on the way, but in the process of the mission, you need to use the mirror token to record the whole process. Use the mirror token to record the whole process? Jian Wushuang was stunned. Yes, only in this way can the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance determine whether you really completed the promotion mission alone. For example, if your mission is to kill an expert, you don't have to record anything else, but you have to use the mirror token to record the whole process of the battle between you and the expert, said Elder Qiu. Of course, you don't have to worry about it. The images recorded by the mirror spiritual talisman are top secret. No matter what you did or how you did it, no one will know about it. The only thing we need to know is whether you completed the task alone. I understand. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. He could barely accept the fact that it was just a chance of a fierce battle. After all, it was just an ordinary 3-star mission, so it should not pose much of a threat to him now. He did not need to use all his strength to expose his many trump cards. Go. Elder Qiu waved his hand. Jian Wushuang immediately set off. The Green River Realm was an area far away from the number 385 nest in the Endless Territory. Jian Wushuang had paid a price to come here, through the wormhole of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. In an ancient sect. Whoosh! A majestic sword light mercilessly slashed down. The The sect-protecting formation that had protected the sect for a long time was split in half by the sword light, and the power of the divine power spread wildly. After that, a human figure charged into this sect like lightning. Who is it that can break into my Green River Palace? You're courting death. Kill him. The entire Green River Palace instantly stirred up, and a large number of Green River Palace experts rushed out, including the 5 immortal saints within the Green River Palace. Amongst these 5 immortal saints, one was a peak false saint. The 5 of them joined hands and blocked in front of that human figure. But in the end, that human figure only slashed out with a tyrannical sword. That sword easily crushed the void, crushing everything. It also crushed the combined attack of the 5 immortal saints from the Green River Palace. The 5 immortal saints from the Green River Palace were sent flying on the spot. 2 of them even spat out fresh blood. The figure did not have any obstacles. He broke into the inner part of Green River Palace and into the many cultivators under the command of Green River Palace. Finally, he found a brown-haired demonic youth in the crowd. This brown-haired demonic youth was Jian Wushuang's target. "It's you." Killing intent flashed in Jian Wushuang's eyes. He swung his blood mountain sword like an electric arc and chopped off the head of the demonic youth. After doing all this, Jian Wushuang soared into the sky and left. No one from the Green River Palace dared to stop him. Among the 3 3-star missions that Jian Wushuang had received, the first mission was to kill a great divine master under the protection of the Green River Palace. Mission completed. In the dark and cold void. Phew. A sorry figure, with his life the fastest speed in that crazy escape. This figure was a young man with fair skin, and a thin and weak figure. The aura that this young man exuded was quite tyrannical. He was a peak false saint, and his combat strength was not ordinary. However, at this moment he was being hunted like a stray dog. It was Jian Wushuang who was chasing him. How can I be found when I have hidden in this place? And the person who found me, obviously just a deity, but combat strength, how can be so strong? The young man's face was aghast, and his heart was full of shock. He has been hiding here for a long time, and no one has found him for so many years. But today, not only has someone found him, but the God who found him. It was terrible. It was indeed terrifying. He was clearly only at the deity realm. But the moment he attacked, he brought along endless sword intent, and unleashed a shocking sword attack that crushed the young man. The second sword attack had severely injured the young man. If it were not for the fact that his life-saving methods were not bad, he would have died under the second sword attack. But now, although he was still alive, he was being pursued by that divine master. "He's faster than me." No. The young man was completely terrified. As Jian Wushuang closed the distance between them, his fear gradually turned into despair. In the end, Jian Wushuang caught up with him and attacked again. This time, Jian Wushuang used the Samsara sword formation. The terrifying Samsara sword formation shattered the young man's divine body with just one attack. The second task was completed. It was a vast and boundless arena. This arena was more than enough for 2 powerful true saints to fight on. There were countless spectators around the arena. On the arena, Jian Wushuang, who was wearing a gray robe and a gray mask, pointed his long sword and easily defeated a peak divine master in front of him. Heavenly Sword Marquis, the 88th victory. As the host announced the result, the spectators around the ring burst into cheers. Heavenly Sword Marquis. Heavenly Sword Marquis. Countless people were calling his name. However, Jian Wushuang's expression was extremely cold. Soon, he saw his 89th opponent enter the ring. This opponent was also a divine master, but he was a rare invincible divine master. However, in the end, the invincible divine master still lost to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang easily won 89 battles, followed by the 90th and 100th battles. In less than 3 days, Jian Wushuang had won 100 battles. The third mission, to win 100 battles in the star battlefield, was also successfully completed. This mission was the easiest among the 3 3-star missions that Jian Wushuang had received, but the reward was not low. Chapter 2966. Earth-level members having cleaving alliance. Nest number 385. Wearing a mysterious gray mask, Jian Wushuang came to the old man again. Hand in the task. Jian Wushuang took out his identity token and the mirror token that had recorded 3 tasks. Heavenly Sword Marquis, you've completed all 3 tasks? And all of them alone? Elder Chiu looked at Jian Wushuang in astonishment. The process of the task is in the mirror token. Jian Wushuang said calmly, I'm not qualified to look at the mirror token. How about this, you wait here for a while. I'll pass the mirror token to the high-level experts of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance to make a judgment, Elder Chiu said. How long will it take? Jian Wushuang asked. Not long, 3 days at most, Elder Chiu said. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. He was not in a hurry for 3 days. Jian Wushuang immediately waited in the nest. 3 days passed quickly, and the results came out. Heavenly Sword Marquis, this is your new identity token. From today on, you are an Earth-level member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, and you have the authority of an Earth-level member. Elder Chiu handed an identity token to Jian Wushuang. His expression was somewhat humble. What a joke. A divine master could become an Earth-level member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Even a fool would know how great this divine master was. How could a mere person in charge of a secret lair compare to such a task? After receiving the identity token, Jian Wushuang was quite delighted. He immediately headed straight for the treasure pavilion. Watching Jian Wushuang leave, Elder Chiu could not help but sigh. A divine master can complete 3 ordinary 3-star missions alone and become an Earth-level member. Heavenly Sword Marquis is definitely one of the top super geniuses in the divine beginning world. He is definitely qualified to enter the 3 palaces and become the core genius disciple of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. But the strange thing is, even though he is so talented, why is there no instruction from above? Elder Chiu thought it was a little strange. The mirror token that Jian Wushuang used to complete the mission was judged by the higher-ups of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. If Jian Wushuang could complete 3 3-star missions alone, even the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance would be eager to recruit such a super genius. However, the result he got was only that Jian Wushuang could become an Earth-level member without any instructions. It was as if the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance did not care about such a super genius at all. Maybe there are other factors. Elder Chiu sighed and did not think much about it. The golden light figure in Treasure Pavilion, which was Lord Tianxua, gathered in front of Jian Wushuang. Lord Tianxua. Jian Wushuang bowed respectfully. Heavenly Sword Marquis, congratulations on becoming an Earth-level member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. You can also enjoy the authority of an Earth-level member here, Lord Tianxua said. Lord Tianxua, I want the 4 forms of the Samsara sword formation that I mentioned to you before. Jian Wushuang said directly. Yes, the 4 forms of the sword formation require 15 million saint pills with the privilege of being an Earth-level member, Lord Tianxua said. Jian Wushuang was prepared and immediately took out an interspatial ring. Lord Tianxua took the interspatial ring, scanned it with his consciousness, and nodded slightly. Wait here. Someone will deliver the 4 forms of the sword formation to you in 10 days. Thank you. Jian Wushuang thanked him, but his expression suddenly changed. He remembered the origin of Lord Tianxua. Lord Tianxua was the only weapon spirit in the treasure pavilion of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. He was knowledgeable and could identify any treasure as quickly as possible. He had obtained a special treasure a long time ago, but he had never appraised it. Sir Tianxua, I have a treasure here. I hope you can appraise it, Jian Wushuang said. Take it out. Sir Tianxua appeared very calm. Jian Wushuang flipped his palm, and a baby-sized black exotic beast statue covered in the power of destruction rules appeared in his hand. Jian Wushuang had obtained this black exotic beast statue in the secret realm of the Pill Sun Sacred World. He had obtained 3 precious treasures, including the cloud pattern armor. He had used the token that contained teleportation to save his life in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Only the black beast statue remained. Jian Wushuang had always thought that the black beast statue was extraordinary, but he did not know what it was. Now Jian Wushuang brought the black beast statue to Lord Tianxua. Lord Tianxua glanced at the black beast statue with a strange look in his eyes. You can get such a treasure? Lord Tianqi's voice was obviously a little surprised. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang understood that this treasure was indeed extraordinary. Otherwise, Lord Tianqi would not have said so. Lord Tianqi, this treasure. Jian Wushuang had just opened his mouth. This treasure has some history. Under normal circumstances, a little guy like you would not have had the chance to come into contact with such a treasure. It's also a fortuitous opportunity for you to get it. Lord Tianqi praised. I can help you appraise this statue, but the cost of appraising it is relatively high. How much? Jian Wushuang asked. 5 million sacred elixirs. Lord Tianqi stretched out 5 fingers. Jian Wushuang was shocked. 5 million sacred elixirs just to appraise this treasure? When appraising the earth divine fruit, Lord Tianqi only said that he would take 500,000 sacred elixirs. The difference between 500,000 and 5 million was 10 times. Could it be that the real value of the statue was 10 times higher than that of the earth divine fruit? How about it? Do you want me to appraise it for you? Lord Tianqi looked at him. Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded. 5 million sacred elixirs was not a big number for him. He wanted to know what the black beast statue was. Sir Tianqi, this is 5 million sacred elixirs. Jian Wushuang took out an interspatial ring again. This time, he completed 3 3-star missions in one go, and received a lot of rewards. In addition to the remaining sacred elixirs, he still had a lot of them, so he could easily take out 5 million sacred elixirs. After taking the interspatial ring, Sir Tianqi said directly, this black beast statue originated from a top special life form in the beginning divine world, the destruction beast god. Destruction beast god? Jian Wushuang was surprised. It has been many years since the divine beginning world was born. During this long time, countless creatures have been born. Chapter 2967. Destruction Beast God Statue. Among the endless creatures, there are all kinds of bloodlines and races. In the absolute beginning divine realm, the 4 divine races are the most famous. They can be called the 4 most powerful races with very strong bloodlines. However, although the bloodlines of the 4 divine races are strong, they are still made up of a great race. In the absolute beginning divine realm, the special life forms have the highest bloodlines or life levels, Lord Tianqi said. Jian Wushuang's heart skipped a beat. It was not the first time he had heard of a special life form. What is special about a special life form? It is unique between heaven and earth. Their innate talent cannot be matched by ordinary bloodlines. Even the most ordinary special life form can be dozens or even hundreds of times stronger than human cultivators, if they are in the same realm as humans. And among these unique creatures, there are some famous ones. Among them is the Destruction Beast God. This Destruction Beast God was born very early in the absolute beginning divine realm. It has already fallen. Although it has fallen, no one dares to forget how terrifying it is. The Destruction Beast God was born for destruction. It is a favored child of the law of destruction. Since it was born, it had an extremely high level of understanding of the law of destruction. Moreover, this kind of understanding makes it so that it doesn't need to cultivate. As it grows, it will naturally improve. The Destruction Beast God can completely comprehend the destruction rules as soon as it reaches adulthood, and become the master of the destruction rules, Sir Tianqi said. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang was shocked. He could completely comprehend a complete destruction rule as soon as he reached adulthood, and become the master of the destruction rules? This talent! No wonder it can be called the master of the destruction rules, Jian Wushuang exclaimed. After all, he was a perfect chaotic creature, and his life level was far above that of many special creatures. However, even he did not have the ability to become a rule master when he reached adulthood. He also needed to cultivate and improve himself slowly. The natural talent of the Destruction Beast God was simply terrifying. Many years ago, the Destruction Beast God roamed the divine beginning world with astonishing combat strength and left a great reputation. However, because it was too talented in the destruction rules, some experts refined treasures based on its divine body, and even left behind its corpse, scales, and bones. These treasures all contain the destruction rules. At the same time, There are people who refine special treasures to comprehend the destruction rules, such as stone tablets and statues, which are imitated from the divine body of the destruction beast god. However, they can only imitate its actions, but not its god. The statue you are taking out is imitated by the destruction beast god. The charm contained in it is probably less than 1,000th of that of the destruction beast god at its peak, Sir Tianxua said. Is that so? Jian Wushuang understood and frowned. It's only 1,000th of its charm, but it still contains such a strong power of destruction rules. Of course it's strong. Lord Tianxua smiled faintly. The destruction beast god at its peak is on par with the top super existences in the divine beginning world. It can be said to be one of the strongest people in the divine beginning world. Even if it's only 1,000th of its charm, it's enough for many powerful immortal saints to study it for a long time. The statue in your hand is definitely a once-in-lifetime treasure for cultivators who have comprehended the destruction rules. The earth divine fruit is much more useful for cultivators who have comprehended the earth rules, so its value is naturally more shocking. Jian Wushuang was delighted. He knew that the black beast statue was extraordinary. Now it seemed that it was indeed so. I didn't expect that the black beast statue would be the most precious of the 3 special treasures from the secret realm, Jian Wushuang murmured. Heavenly Sword Marquis, the destruction beast god statue should be of little use to you. You can choose to sell it to me. As for its value, I can give you 500 million sacred elixirs with your authority as an Earth-level member. How about that? Lord Tianxia looked over. 500 million. Jian Wushuang's heart skipped a beat. The divine earth fruit had only sold for 100 million sacred elixirs, and in the end, it was split equally between him and Xue Dong King. However, the destruction beast god statue could sell for 500 million sacred elixirs. He owned 500 million sacred elixirs alone. There's no rush for this statue. Jian Wushuang shook his head. I'm still weak, and I've already obtained most of the resources I need. I want exchange for this statue for the time being. When I need to exchange for sacred elixirs, it's not too late for me to do so. In that case, I won't force you. Go. Lord Tianxia waved his hand. Jian Wushuang bowed respectfully to Lord Tianxia, then turned and left. After coming out of the secret nest, Jian Wushuang was still quite excited. With the destruction beast god statue, worth 500 million sacred elixirs, I have a huge amount of money in my hands. I must use this money in the most reasonable way to maximize its value. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands. There's no rush. I just reached the realm of peak great divine master not long ago. And now I have the 4-layered sword formation of the Samsara sword formation. Let's see the power of the 4-layered sword formation first. Jian Wushuang immediately found a hidden void. Jian Wushuang temporarily opened a cave mansion in the void, and then he began to comprehend the 5th-layered Samsara sword formation. The first level of the Samsara sword formation was called the Horn of Heaven, the 2nd level of World Sink, the 3rd level of Samsara Drunk, and the 4th level of Ice and Snow World. The 5th level of the sword formation was called Saint Slaying. Jian Wushuang did not know why Sword Master Tongxin named the 5th level of the sword formation. However, one thing was that the power of the 5th level of the sword formation was much stronger than the 4th level of the sword formation. It was a completely different concept, the difference between heaven and earth. Of course, the power of the 5th sword formation was so strong that it was naturally more complicated and difficult to comprehend. Most importantly, it had a higher requirement for the comprehension of the Samsara rule. After Jian Wushuang comprehended it, he soon learned that if he wanted to truly use the 5th sword formation, his comprehension of the Samsara rule had to be at least at the true saint level. A true saint was not an ordinary false saint. Jian Wushuang's comprehension of the space-time rule and the reincarnation rule was only at the false saint level. He had just reached the true saint level, but there was still a big gap between him and a true saint. Chapter 2968. 80 years. I didn't expect the 5th sword formation to have such a high requirement for the reincarnation rule. Jian Wushuang frowned slightly. His control of the fourth level of the reincarnation sword formation, the world of ice and snow, had long been perfect, so he thought he should be able to control the fifth sword formation. But in the end, he was still far from comprehending the samsara rules. Even though he had already obtained the fourth level of the sword formation, his comprehension of the samsara rules did not meet the requirements, and he could not use it. There's no rush. I have nothing to do now anyway. At most, I'll go into seclusion for a period of time. When my comprehension of the samsara rules reaches the true saint level and meets the requirements, it won't be too late for me to come out of seclusion. Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with a light, but he had already made up his mind. On the same day, he immediately went to the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance to meet Sir Tianxua. He spent a lot of sacred elixirs and exchanged for a lot of treasures from the treasure pavilion that were of great help in comprehending the samsara rules. After that, he began his seclusion. This time, he was obviously not going to stop until he displayed the fifth level of the samsara sword formation. His comprehension ability was extremely high, and he had a total of 3 heaven-sealing diagrams in his hands. As long as he calmed his heart to comprehend, his comprehension of the laws would increase tremendously. Now that he had exchanged for a lot of consumable treasures from the treasure pavilion to improve his comprehension of the samsara laws, his improvement speed was naturally faster and more frightening. The further he went in comprehending the rules, the more difficult it became. Especially after reaching the level of the immortal saint, it was extremely difficult to make even a small amount of progress, let alone a big improvement. For ordinary cultivators, even some genius experts, it would definitely take a long time to raise the comprehension of a rule from the ordinary false saint level to the true saint level. It would take at least thousands of years, at most tens of thousands of years. However, Jian Wushuang, it did not take that long. In just 80 years, Jian Wushuang's comprehension of the reincarnation rule had reached the true saint level as he wished. This was because during these 80 years, he had spent a lot of energy to improve his divine power and his comprehension of the space-time rule and sword principle. Otherwise, it would not have taken him 80 years. Jian Wushuang stood calmly in the void. In front of him was a vast mountain range. With a slight wave of his hand, streams of cyan light immediately rose up. These cyan lights were stargaze swords, which had reached the level of a top-grade, third-grade holy treasure. A total of 18 stargaze swords were lined up side by side. Condense. As Jian Wushuang uttered the word, the 18 stargaze swords immediately condensed together at the fastest speed. In an instant rumble, an earth-shaking rumble sounded, and a huge spiral tunnel that emitted the power of endless reincarnation rules appeared between heaven and earth. This spiral tunnel was like the reincarnation tunnel that led to reincarnation. It was mysterious, vast, and unfathomable. However, right at this reincarnation tunnel, a dazzling green light suddenly shot out. This green light was extremely long, and it brought along a gigantic green tail. It was at least tens of meters long, but its volume was not big. The green light was extremely fast, so fast that it was inconceivable. In the blink of an eye, it had penetrated through the void in front of it, and finally, it struck a towering mountain in the distance. Bang! A hole was immediately pierced through the middle of the mountain, but the cyan lights came out from the other end of the mountain and continued to hit the next mountain. Bang! 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 A series of explosions sounded. The bright cyan light pierced through a total of 8 giant mountains in an instant, and its power slowly dissipated. Jian Wushuang, who had seen all of this, had an unprecedented glint in his eyes. As expected, the 5th level of the sword formation is much stronger than the 4th level. It's worth the 80 years of hard work I put in to improve the reincarnation rule. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands, feeling extremely excited. The power of the 4th level of the reincarnation sword formation, the world of ice and snow, was already extraordinary. It was comparable to the most powerful absolute arts created by many peak false saints. As for the 5th level of the sword formation, the Saint Slayer, its power was definitely more than 10 times that of the world of ice and snow, or even more. Without a doubt, The power of the fifth level of the sword formation was definitely comparable to the most powerful absolute arts created by true saints. In Jian Wushuang's opinion, the fifth level of the sword formation was even slightly stronger than the most powerful absolute arts created by the one-star peak true saint Star Sea Saint who had fought with him before. It was slightly stronger. When my realm had not broken through, and the reincarnation sword formation had not been greatly improved, I could face the Star Sea Saint head-on. Now that my realm has broken through, the key point is that the 18 underworld blood divine swords in the reincarnation sword formation have all been replaced by the Star Luo sword. Their power has soared. Previously, I could only use the fourth sword formation, but now I can use the fifth sword formation. In addition, over the past 80 years, I have improved in the rules and sword principle. Who among the rank 1 true saints can stop me now? Let alone a rank 1 true saint. Even if I were to encounter an ordinary rank 2 true saint, I'm afraid I can still defeat him now. A mere divine master was able to defeat a rank 2 true saint? This was simply inconceivable to others, but it was not impossible for Jian Wushuang, who was a perfect chaotic creature. Unfortunately, although my strength has improved a lot over the past 80 years, and my divine power has reached the limit of a divine master, I have not been able to directly break through to the saint level. Jian Wushuang sighed quietly. After all, divine masters and immortal saints were two different concepts. Of course, Jian Wushuang was eager to break through. Previously, he had cultivated all the way, because his comprehension of sword principle and rules far exceeded his own realm. Therefore, as long as he had accumulated his divine power to the limit, he could naturally break through. It had always been the case. But now that he had reached the limit of the divine master realm, he found that it was not the case. Now, although he had accumulated his divine power to the limit, he did not directly break through to the saint realm. It was not because he did not want to, but because he could not do it. If an ordinary cultivator's understanding of Tao and comprehension of Tao reached my level, he could easily break through to the saint realm. But I seem to be different. Now, whether it's my understanding of Tao, my comprehension of rules, or even all kinds of methods, I'm far better than an ordinary immortal saint, but I can't break through. I feel that I'm still lacking something, Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. He knew that what he lacked was not only an opportunity, but also something else. In other words, he still had room for improvement. Chapter 2969. Shuedong King's good friend, no rush, take your time, Jian Wushuang said with a faint smile. It had been less than 300 years since he was born. It was incredible that he had reached the limit of a divine master in such a short period of time. The immortal saint was so much stronger than a divine master. How could he break through so easily? Jian Wushuang was also very patient. However, after controlling the fifth level of the Samsara sword formation, Jian Wushuang did not plan to continue his closed-door cultivation. Let's go and do the mission, Jian Wushuang muttered. Based on his own judgment, his current battle strength should be comparable to a second-ranked true saint, and this strength was already the threshold of the heaven-grade members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Of course, Jian Wushuang wanted to become a heaven-grade member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance as soon as possible. In order to become a heaven-grade member, he had to complete 3 Earth-grade 3-star missions alone. Jian Wushuang had never really encountered Earth-grade missions, especially 3-star Earth-grade missions. He did not know how difficult the missions were, so he did not dare to be too careless. Shuedong King. Jian Wushuang took out a token and began to send a message. Brother Heavenly Sword Marquis, are you not in closed-door cultivation? Shuedong King quickly replied. Yes, I just came out of closed-door cultivation. I want to ask you what you have been doing recently. Jian Wushuang smiled and communicated with Shuedong King. Shuedong King was a good friend of his, and they had a certain friendship. They had completed the mission to kill the 3 shadow saints and obtained the divine earth fruit. After selling the fruit to Lord Tianshou, Shuedong King had obtained 50 million sacred elixirs. He had used the 50 million sacred elixirs to exchange for many secret skills and cultivation treasures, and his strength had improved a lot. In the 80 years that Jian Wushuang had been cultivating in seclusion, Shui Dongqing had also completed 3 ordinary 3-star missions and become an Earth-level member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. I had completed 1 Earth-level 1-star mission before, and he brought me to join a small team. Our team has just received a 3-star Earth-level mission. Brother Heavenly Sword Marquis, why don't you join us? Shui Dongqing said. 3-star Earth-level mission? Jian Wushuang's heart stirred. What he thought really came true. He was now a bit curious about an Earth-level 3-star mission. He did not know how difficult and deep the mission was. The best way was to join hands with someone to complete a 3-star mission. It turned out that Shui Dongqing had accepted an Earth-level 3-star mission with someone, and had even taken the initiative to invite him. Sure, where are you? Jian Wushuang asked. Shui Dongqing immediately sent his location to Jian Wushuang, who immediately rushed over. This was a relatively remote territory in the Endless Territory. A total of 7 figures were gathered in a great canyon. Most of the 7 figures were wearing gray robes and masks, and all of them had powerful auras. Even the weakest one was at the peak false saint level, and 2 of them were even more powerful true saints. Whoosh! Without wearing a mask, Shui Dongqing stood up. Captain, I just contacted a good friend of mine and told him that we're about to complete a 3-star Earth rank mission. He's on his way here right now, Shui Dongqing said. The captain of this team was a tan man over 2 meters tall, and his aura was extremely violent. This burly man carried a huge axe on his back. Hearing the words of the Shui Dongqing, this burly man nodded slightly. This mission is quite special. Not only is there a 2-layered mission, but the most important thing is that the reward for this mission is much more than the same 3-star Earth rank mission. It's almost 10 times more. Such a high reward mission is naturally more dangerous. We naturally have to be more careful. The stronger the squad, the better. Now that there's an expert interested in joining, it's naturally the best. Alright, how's your good friend's strength? Stronger than mine, Shui Dongqing said directly. Oh! The valiant man's eyes lit up. The other members of the squad at the side also looked over. All of the experts in their team were Earth-rank members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Their strength was also very impressive. Even the weakest of them was a peak false saint. And Shui Dongqing's strength should be second only to those 2 true saints in the team. His battle strength was almost on par with that of the weakest true saint. Now that Shui Dongqing himself said that his good friend was stronger than him, did that not mean that his friend had the battle strength of a true saint? If there really is an expert at the true saint level joining us, then our team's lineup will increase by quite a bit, and our chances of completing this mission will be even greater, the tough man said with a smile. My friend has already left. He will arrive here soon, Shui Dongqing said. In that case, let's wait for him here, the tough man said with a smile, appearing to be very patient. The 7 people of the team were waiting quietly in the valley. Half a day later, a figure in a gray robe, wearing a gray mask, and emitting a dark aura rushed over from a distance. Soon, he appeared in front of the 7 people in the valley. Haha, brother of the Heavenly Sword Marquis. Shui Dongqing laughed and immediately came forward to greet him. Shui Dongqing, Jian Wushuang said, and he also looked at the other people in the team. He found that the other 6 members of Shui Dongqing's team, including the 2 stronger true saint experts, were looking at Jian Wushuang coldly. Shui Dongqing, is this the good friend you mentioned before? The tough man, who was the team leader, asked. Yes, he is my good friend, Heavenly Sword Marquis, Shui Dongqing said with a smile. However, the members of the team could not smile because they had already sensed the aura that Jian Wushuang was exuding. Divine Master. Yes, the aura that Jian Wushuang was exuding was only at the Divine Master level. It could not be helped. He was a Divine Master. Although the black stone that Xianshan Taoist refined for him could change his divine power aura and increase his divine power aura by 2 levels, it was only effective for those below the Immortal Saint level. Right now, the black stone was completely unable to make him emit the aura of the Immortal Saint. A mere Divine Master, of course, was nothing in the eyes of the 7 people in this squad. Shui Dongqing, are you playing with us? You want a Divine Master to join our squad? Shui Dongqing, are you joking? Shuedong King, give us an explanation. Cold voices rang out one after another, and the gazes these people used to look at Shuedong King turned cold. Shuedong King's expression changed, but he immediately said, "Everyone, don't misunderstand. I have no intention of fooling you. This good friend of mine is indeed only at the Divine Master level, but his combat strength is extremely outstanding." Chapter 2970. 3 moves. Is he very powerful? The other 6 members of the team looked at each other in dismay, but their eyes were still cold. Humph! A low humph suddenly sounded. It was the team leader, the tough man. Shuedong King, you know how dangerous this mission is. With our team's current lineup, it's uncertain whether we can complete this mission safely. Do you want us to bring a burden with us at this time? The tough man said. Burden? Jian Wuxia wore a strange expression under his mask. Captain. Shuedong King was also anxious. You have to believe me. The brother of the Heavenly Sword Marquis is indeed very strong. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become an Earth-level member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. An Earth-level member? The 6 people in the team immediately looked at Jian Wuxia. Jian Wuxia smiled and took out his identity token. He really is an Earth-level member. A Divine Master became an Earth-level member? How is that possible? It's impossible. He must have completed 3 ordinary 3-star missions of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance in some special way. Otherwise, a Divine Master like him would never have completed 3 ordinary 3-star missions alone. The few people in the team immediately began to doubt. They had no choice but to doubt. One had to know that they were all Earth-rank members. They had all completed 3 ordinary 3-star missions alone. Even if it was only an ordinary mission, once one reached 3-star, the difficulty coefficient would greatly increase. Even a peak false saint would have to be very careful in order to have any hope of completing it. How could a reverent god have the ability to complete such a mission? The people in the team did not believe it. At this time, the tough man stepped forward and said, Shuedong King, you have joined our team for a long time. Since you have been doing well in our team, I can give you some face and take a step back. Ah chow. Captain. A person immediately walked out. Heavenly Sword Marquis. The tough man stared at Jian Wuxia. I'll give you a chance to fight with Ah Chow. As long as you can survive 3 rounds without getting hurt, we'll recognize your strength. Otherwise you'd better leave. 3 rounds? Sure. Jian Wuxia smiled, not caring about it. He knew that with his Divine Master realm, it was not difficult for him to avoid suspicion, so he was mentally prepared. In the void in the center of the valley, Jian Wuxia and Ah Chow were facing each other at a certain distance. The other members of the team were watching from not far away. Ah Chow, make sure you don't kill this little guy. Yeah, he's a good friend of the Shuedong King. Give him some face and don't kill him. Hurry up and get rid of him. The peak false saints in the team were still smiling casually. Jian Wuxia revealed a playful smile under the mask. As for Ah Chow, his eyes were extremely cold. Kid, don't worry. For the sake of the Shuedong King, I won't kill you. But I'll let you know that there's an insurmountable gap between a Divine Master and a peak false saint. As soon as Ah Chow finished his words, his figure suddenly rushed out. Ah Chow seemed to be quite thin and weak, but as soon as he moved, his violent aura burst out and instantly transformed into an ancient fierce beast that charged at Jian Wuxia. When he appeared in front of Jian Wuxia, he formed a claw with one hand. He directly slashed at the void. It was as if the void was about to be completely torn apart. Jian Wuxia could clearly see 5 scarlet rays of blood light attacking his face. Jian Wuxia smiled slightly, formed a fist with his right hand, gathered divine power, and then stretched it out. Bang! A low sound of collision was heard. Ah Chow suddenly shook his body. His right palm was a little numb, and even slightly painful. He looked at Jian Wuxia in surprise, and then pounced forward again. This time, he used 2 palms at the same time. The 2 palms cut through the void, bringing with them 2 scarlet flowing lights. It was like a gorgeous meteorite cutting through the void. However, the meteorite looked unusually cold. Jian Wuxia's body swayed slightly. With the help of the space-time rule, He had dodged to the side and easily dodged Ah Chaos 2 claws. After 2 consecutive attacks, Jian Wushuang had also received 2 attacks from Ah Chao. At this time, before Ah Chao could launch a 3rd attack, Jian Wushuang took the initiative to attack. He also launched an ordinary punch. However, this punch contained not only his extremely powerful divine power, but also a large amount of the power of the reincarnation rule. One had to know that his current comprehension of the reincarnation rule had already reached the true saint level. Bang! It was clearly an ordinary punch, but it was magnified at a terrifying speed in the void. In the end, it even covered half of the void. The terrifying might completely covered Ah Chao within. Facing such might, even a peak false saint like Ah Chao had a hint of shock in his eyes. Next, he sank into the might that filled the sky, and a large amount of divine power continuously scattered. It took a long time for Ah Chao to break free from the power, but he looked a bit embarrassed. After breaking free, Ah Chao did not continue to attack. Instead, he retreated to the side of the void. He looked at Jian Wushuang with a serious look instead of contempt, but he was more shocked. The other members of the team who were watching the battle around the battlefield were laughing, but now they could not laugh. They looked at Jian Wushuang in shock. 3 moves. Yes, Jian Wushuang had only exchanged 3 moves with Ah Chao. However, in these 3 moves, 2 moves, Ah Chao was the one who initiated the attack, but Jian Wushuang easily blocked or neutralized it. In the last move, Jian Wushuang took the initiative to attack, forcing Ah Chao into a sorry state. Although Ah Chao did not have the time to use all of his strength, judging from the 3 exchanges, this good friend of Shuedong King, and the Divine Master in front of him, although he was only at the Divine Master level, his battle strength was indeed extraordinary. At the very least, he should be at the peak false saint level. Can a Divine Master really contend with a peak false saint? Genius! Heavenly Sword Marquis must be a very great genius, to be able to fight against a dynasty for 3 rounds without falling behind. His strength is not considered weak. Previously, these people thought that Jian Wushuang, a divine master, would be a burden to their team, so they did not agree. But now, Chapter 2971, Dragon Flame World. Shuedong King, your good friend is really strong. He will be included in this mission, the tough man said directly. Thank you, Captain. Shuedong King was delighted. In fact, he was glad that Jian Wushuang was on his team. He knew Jian Wushuang's battle strength very well. 80 years ago, Jian Wushuang fought with a saint at the peak of rank 1 true saint, the Star Sea Saint. He was only at a disadvantage. In his team, even their captain could not have such battle strength. It was a great blessing for his team that Jian Wushuang could join them to complete this mission. Of course, Shuedong King would not take the initiative to explain. Heavenly Sword Marquis, the tough man looked at Jian Wushuang and said, I am Man Tai. You can call me Captain. From now on, you are a member of our team. Barbarian King team? Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. This time, our team has accepted a 3-star Earth-level task, which is very special and difficult. Although our team's battle strength is good, we still have to be careful. During the process of the task, I hope you will absolutely follow my instructions, the tough man said. As long as I'm not stupid enough to be cannon fodder, it's no problem, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. Of course not, the tough man said with a smile. These are the other members of our team. You already know Shuedong King and Ah Chao. You should also know the others. Jian Wushuang immediately got to know the others. Heavenly Sword Marquis, you just joined our Barbarian King team. I'm afraid you don't know what mission we have accepted. Shuedong King, tell him in detail, the tough man said. Okay. Shuedong King nodded and began to tell Jian Wushuang. After a while, it's about time. We should set off. The tough man stood up. The other 7 members of the team, including Jian Wushuang, were also ready. Let's go. The tough man gave the order, and the 8 members of the Barbarian King team immediately headed to the nearby Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's lair. Through the spatial impulse in the lair, the Barbarian King team of 8 quickly appeared at the location of their mission, the Dragon Flame World. The Dragon Flame world was a special territory. This territory was not occupied by human cultivators, but by exotic beasts. There were all kinds of powerful exotic beasts here, and there were many of them. Among them, the most famous and powerful one was the Dragon Flame beast. The Dragon Flame beast was not a beast with a high bloodline among the beasts in the beginning divine realm, but it was not weak either. After all, it could carry the word dragon, so it was more or less related to the bloodline of a true dragon. According to the information the Barbarian King's team got from the mission, there were more than 30 Dragon Flame beasts in the Dragon Flame world. Among these 30 Dragon Flame beasts, 6 of them were still in the growth stage. They were so weak that they could not even fight against the immortal saint. However, the remaining ones could contend against the human immortal saint. Among them, there were 16 Dragon Flame beasts that were comparable to a human cultivator's first-level true saint. In addition, the strongest 3 Dragon Flame beasts in the Dragon Flame world could even contend against a second-level true saint. The first mission the Barbarian King team received this time was to kill a Dragon Flame beast that had reached the first-level true saint. In the void of the Dragon Flame world, the 8 members of the Barbarian King team continued to fly forward. Be careful, this Dragon Flame world is a territory controlled by exotic beasts after all. There are many exotic beasts here, and most of these exotic beasts hate us human cultivators. Once they discover our arrival, they might directly kill us. Although most of the exotic beasts are very weak, there are too many of them. Once we are targeted by some of the exotic beasts and fall into a big battle, we will not be able to get out of it in a short period of time. The disturbance will be greater and greater, and more exotic beasts will be attracted to us. Although our squad is not weak, it is nothing in front of billions of exotic beasts. Therefore, we must not linger in the battle at any time. If you encounter an exotic beast, don't fight if you can. If you do, kill it quickly. Do you understand? The tough man's deep voice echoed in everyone's ears. I understand. The 7 people in the team, including Jian Wuxia, nodded heavily. They were in the exotic beast territory, so they knew the consequences if they were surrounded by countless exotic beasts. Roar! An angry roar suddenly sounded, shaking the sky. Exotic beasts have found us. The tough man's face darkened. Look at this aura. It's an exotic beast that's comparable to the immortal saint, but it's not a Dragon Flame beast, Shuedong King said solemnly. Kill him directly, the tough man ordered. Their team immediately crushed the exotic beast and killed it in less than 2 breaths. Then they left as fast as they could. In a flash, the 8 members of the Barbarian King team had been in the Dragon Flame world for 3 days. During these 3 days, they had encountered many exotic beasts and fought with them several times. However, they killed them as fast as they could and did not encounter much trouble. According to the mission report, there is a Dragon Flame beast that is comparable to a true saint in the forest ahead, the tough man said. Jian Wuxia and the others looked up and looked at the forest at the end of their line of sight. The forest was extremely vast and hid the aura of many exotic beasts. The missions issued by the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance usually had detailed mission descriptions and some information. For example, the mission they intercepted this time included the location of the Dragon Flame beasts in the Dragon Flame world. The Dragon Flame beast with true saint battle strength is not to be underestimated. Moreover, this is the territory of exotic beasts. We must kill the Dragon Flame beast as soon as possible and then leave, the tough man said with a serious tone. How about this? Later, I, Puyu, and Shuedong King will directly attack the Dragon Flame beast. Ah Chao, Heavenly Sword Marquis. You guys are slightly weaker, so there is no need to fight the Dragon Flame beast head-on. Just 2 people and 3 people will stay around to prevent the Dragon Flame beast from escaping. Yes, no problem. Everyone in the Barbarian King team nodded in unison. Immediately, the 3 strongest people in the Barbarian King team directly charged into the forest. Among these 3 people, Barbarian Tai was the team leader, and his combat strength was the strongest, close to the peak of rank 1. Although Puyu was wearing a mask, It was clear that she was a woman with a pretty temperament. She was the second true saint in the team, and her combat strength was naturally second only to Barbarian Tai, which was the tough man. As for Shuedong King, after selling the divine earth fruit and obtaining a large number of sacred elixirs, his strength had soared after exchanging for treasures. He was not much weaker than an ordinary true saint. If the three of them worked together, they would be able to kill the dragon flame beast without any mishaps. Chapter 2972. Kill the Dragon Flame Beast. Boom! A violent roar resounded across the sky and broke the silence of the dense forest. Along with a loud dragon roar, an extremely violent aura suddenly rose. Whoosh! A strong wind blew, and a large number of towering trees, which were 300 meters tall, were easily lifted up like seedlings. A huge monster really appeared in the world. Is that the Dragon Flame Beast? Jian Wushuang and Ah Chao stood in the void at the edge of the dense forest. They both looked at the fiery red monster in front of them. This huge monster was like a lion. It had a huge and ferocious head, and its body was covered with red scales. It also had a pair of huge wings on both sides of its body. These wings were dragon wings. It was surrounded by raging flames which burned everything. Anyone standing around it could feel the scorching heat. Dragon Flame Beast at the true saint level has a strong aura. Jian Wushuang muttered. Look, the captain and the others are attacking. Ah Chaos eyes were shining. In the void in the middle of the dense forest, the tough man, Puyu, and Shuedong King had already attacked with all their strength. The three of them surrounded the Dragon Flame Beast and displayed their monstrous strength, frantically attacking to kill it. Although the Dragon Flame Beast was a true saint beast, its combat strength was only around a first-level true saint. Facing the combined attacks of the three of them, it naturally could not resist, especially Man Tai, who was the strongest of the three. He held a golden axe tightly in his hand. The golden axe was covered with layers of golden thunder, as if the golden thunder god was alive. He waved the golden axe repeatedly, each time as if a golden divine thunder had descended. It was extremely powerful and invincible. The power contained in the golden axe suppressed the Dragon Flame Beast again and again. Several times when the Dragon Flame Beast wanted to rise, it was pressed down to the ground by the golden axe. The strength of this captain is not bad. He is very close to the Star Sea Saint, Jian Wushuang murmured. In terms of strength, the Barbarian King was only close to the Star Sea Saint, but it was still slightly weaker. With the help of Puyu and Shuedong King, the Dragon Flame Beast could not escape even if it wanted to. In just a moment, the Dragon Flame Beast was covered in wounds under the attack of the three people. Obviously, it could not hold on for long. Is it going to be killed soon? The Barbarian King team's eyes were filled with anticipation as they watched the Dragon Flame Beast escape. But right at this moment, dong, 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 a low and deep sound suddenly came from the void not far away. At the same time, a similarly powerful and violent aura slowly rose from the void. This is. The 8 members of the Barbarian King team immediately looked towards the void. At the end of the void, an ugly black armored beast covered in pitch black scales was rushing over. The low thud 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 was the footsteps of this black armored beast. The aura of this black armored beast was extremely powerful. Another true saint beast? Not good. Damn it. There's another true saint beast near this Dragon Flame Beast. The expressions of the Barbarian King team became ugly. They were currently trying their best to kill the Dragon Flame Beast, so they naturally did not want any other beasts to disturb them. If it was just some weaker beasts, such as a few ordinary saint beasts, they would be able to deal with them easily. But in the end, it was a true saint-level exotic beast. True saint-level exotic beasts. Besides the 3 people who were currently surrounding and killing the Dragon Flame Beast, who else could contend against them? Whether it was Barbarian King, Puyu, or Shuedong King, the 3 of them were at the most critical moment. The Dragon Flame Beast was about to be killed. If any of them left at this time, the Dragon Flame Beast would easily find an opportunity to escape. By then, all their efforts would have been in vain. 10 breaths, at most 10 breaths, we can kill the Dragon Flame Beast. Ah Chow, Heavenly Sword Marquis. The five of you, think of a way to stop the black-armored beast. The Barbarian King shouted. As the leader of the Barbarian King team, this was his best judgment at the first moment. The three of them continued to kill the dragon flame beast, while Jian Wushuang and the others tried to stop the black-armored beast. In just 10 breaths, the 5 superior false saints should be able to hold on. Kill! Stop him! Evil creature, die! The 5 superior false saints, including Jian Wushuang, moved at once. The 5 of them appeared in front of the black-armored beast, and then attacked. Except for Jian Wushuang, the other 4 immediately displayed their strongest strength. Boom! 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 5 powerful attacks were directed at the black-armored beast. Jian Wushuang's attack was also included. Although he did not use his full strength, the power of his casual attack was not inferior to the full strength of a superior false saint. In the face of these 5 attacks, the black-armored exotic beast spat out 2 streams of black air from its nose. Then its body moved strangely like a demonic charm. Swish! 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 The black-armored exotic beast left several afterimages in the void, but its body easily passed through the attacks of the 5 people. What? This speed, it's so fast. This beast's speed is too fast. Ah Chow and the other 3 people were shocked, but the black-armored beast had already appeared in front of him. 2 sharp claws flashed like 2 streams of black light. Jian Wushuang was the only one who could see some shadows, but the other 4 people did not have time to react. Puff! 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 The black-armored beast easily flashed twice, but only twice. Ah Chow and the other 4 peak false saints were hit by the sharp claws of the black-armored beast. Although their divine bodies were not shattered, the 4 of them were severely injured. They all spat out blood. The 4 of them also retreated in a sorry state. In addition, the black-armored beast did not only attack the 4 of them, but also the 5 of them at the same time. Jian Wushuang was also one of the targets of the black-armored beast, but unfortunately, its sharp claws were blocked by Jian Wushuang. Human! The black-armored beast stared at Jian Wushuang with cold eyes. An exotic beast at the true saint level was not much inferior to a human cultivator in terms of intelligence. When it first saw Jian Wushuang and the others, it knew that Jian Wushuang's aura was the weakest, but it did not expect that the weakest human, instead, it blocked its attack head-on. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.